Mr. Shi?
Here.
Mr. Maroney?
Here.
Mrs. Madiker?
Here.
Mr. Errico?
Here.
Mr. Brescher?
Here.
Mrs. DeStefano?
Here.
Mr. Patel?
Here.
All present by Mrs. Ward and Mrs. Peng.
Opening statement, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Edison Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Board of Education and administrative offices. Copies of the notices were sent to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger on January 8th and 24th and August 28th, 2018. The public may participate at regular meetings in accordance with the bylaws and the applicable state regulations. So today we have a combined meeting. So we're going to go to the closed session first, then we're going to come back there.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Board of Education of Township of Edison as follows. 1, the public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the herein specified subject matters. 2, the general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Attorney-client privilege discussion regarding student issues, contracts for interim superintendents, employee matters, litigation brought on by former employees, M&M construction litigation, lease purchase agreements, and contract negotiations. Under personnel, we'll be discussing resignations and terminations, retirements, appointments, reappointments, leaves of absences, changes of status, longevity, substitute staff, co-curricular appointments, split-funded personnel, MacBook setup and distribution, salary adjustments for certified staff, and for non-certified staff, Special Olympics, translators for parent-teacher conferences, coaching appointments, and job descriptions. 3, it is anticipated at this time that the above-stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists, and 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately.
Can I have a motion? Mrs. Maroney, can I have a second? Mr. DeStefano?
Ralph's been raising his hand at you.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mr. Errico?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
All yes.
So we hope we're gonna stick to 1 hour. Hope we can come back at 7 o'clock. If it's longer than that, I'll come back and notify you guys at 7.
Never enjoy reading. I wonder what Teresa is. Well, she's been gone a week.
Vacation.
She told me she had to go see someone who was sick for about a week. But that was on Monday. Except when you say about a week, I figured you'd actually meet.
Okay, we are reconvening the meeting. Can I have a motion to reconvene? Mr. Brescher, Mrs. Maroney?
Mr. Patel?
Here.
Mr. DeStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Here.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Oh, Mrs. Peng. Peng, she's back now.
Here.
Okay. Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
All present by Mrs. Ward, Mr. Errico, and that's it.
Okay. So first up, we have the approval of the board, the meeting minutes, a board secretary report. Anything, Dan, you want to say? Then we have the approval of the minutes of August 27th meeting. Can we have a motion on the approval of the meeting minutes? Mr. Brescher, Mr. DeStefano?
Mr. Patel,
Abstain, I was not there.
okay, on the minutes,
Yeah.
the board secretary report, you're right, you okay with that?
Yeah, that's-
Yes, okay. Mr. DeStefano,
Yes, on both.
Mr. Brescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Peng,
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker,
Abstain on the minutes. I was absent in the last meeting.
the board secretary's report, you're okay?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Maroney,
Yes on the board secretary's report, abstain on the minutes of August 27.
All right, thank you. Mr. Shi,
Yes.
so carried.
So before we actually start the meeting, I'd like to have a motion to add three resolutions, which was just provided to you guys. I want to add a section 6. The three items we want to add is the settlement with Construction, the extension of Margaret Contaldi as our acting superintendent, and the extension of Paul Sexton as the consultant for our school district. The three items adding into the section 10, item 6 in the resolutions. So can I have a motion? Okay, Mr. Maroney, second. Oh, Mrs. Patel?
Mr. Patel?
Yes?
Mrs. Stefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Maneker?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
All yes.
All right, so this is just adding, we are not voting on it, okay? All right, so let's go to the regular agenda. We have a presentation. Margaret?
Good evening, everyone. The Violence and Vandalism Report is submitted annually to the New Jersey Department of Education. The current report indicates that the number of violence and vandalism incidents reported by each of our schools for the 17-18 school year. And as you can see, there is a downward trend in the total number of incidents for 17-18 as compared to the 16-17 school year. Margaret, I had a question. Yes. So, if you look at the bar graph, there's been a steep decline from 2006 to and 7 school year to now. What would you attribute the decline to?
I would say greater awareness of what merits the violence and vandalism report. There has been dialogue amongst administrators, not just in Edison, but across the state. And I think that it's being handled discreetly within the buildings, and it's a more accurate recording system than it had been in the past.
Thanks.
Okay, any public comments on the violence and vandalism report only? If anyone has any comments, can go to the podium. See none. Let's move on. Administration. Oh.
I have a question. Are we doing the presentation first?
Oh, standard testing, okay, I'm sorry, okay. Yes. Presentation. Who is gonna-
Right over there.
Oh, that's-
Good evening. My name is Belinda Mahabir. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for Elementary, and Debbie Gulick, who is the Chief Academic Officer of Secondary, and I will be presenting the assessment results today, and that is surrounding our PARC results. So a few things that you should know. PARC was in place this past year, and still we think will be in place for the next couple of years. It's definitely going to be in place this school year. We're not sure yet what's happening beyond that. What we do know is that for this school year, the tests have been shortened. We're not sure what it looks like, but that is what we have heard so far. As in the past, there had been 5 levels of performance, not yet meeting expectations, partially approaching, meeting, and exceeding, with the last 2, level 4 and 5, making up what we consider college and career readiness, as designated by the Common Core and the NJSLS. As a district at the grades 3 through 5 level, is still doing very well. Grade 3 overall for ELA, we had 73.2% of students at the college and career readiness level, as opposed to the state, which was at 51.7. At grade 4, it was 75.2 at the district level, 58 at the state, and at grade 5, it was 77.7% with 58 at the state level. Math looks similar, with 73.2% at grade 3 and 53 at the state level, 68.2% grade 4 at the district level, 49 At the state level, 68.7% for grade 5 and 48 at the state level, excuse me. So at grade 3, overall, we made some gains. What I will say is that as we look at all of the results throughout the district, there are pockets of gains and losses made across ELA and math. And those discussions will be had with each principal. In ELA, what I found, and in speaking with the administrators, is that we still need to do some work in informational text, and it is something that we are talking about for the coming year to see how we can improve our language arts program. So that's grade 4. Again, there are pockets of losses and gains. Overall, at the district level, we did do well with a slight gain, and in comparison to the state as well. Grade 5 is a split with losses made at the state and the consortium level as well. There is a consortium of 6 states who participate in PARC as well, and what's interesting is we make up about 1/3 of those scores just in New Jersey alone. Math grade 3. What we're finding with math is that the modeling and reasoning was an issue across all 3 grades. And this year we have introduced investigations as our new math program, K through 5, which is focused on that piece. It is more inquiry-based. We found that the students needed more application of their thinking and their understanding rather than just the process and the procedures. Just being able to just being able to use an algorithm is not enough. Being able to understand how to use it. So you will see in grade 3 that there is some work to be done, and 4 as well. The science scores, we did actually not get any scores this year as it was a field test in both grade 5 and in grade 8 as well. So we did not get any reports this year. We're hoping that maybe this year we will get some. So in response to our results, as I just mentioned, we have a new math program after the extensive pilot. It's hands-on, real-world application. We've already started doing quite a bit of PD for the teachers. We started some at the end of May, and we continued this week with bringing every teacher in to do some math training for them as well. We will have follow-up coaching visits as well, and we're also going to be including some PD during our faculty meetings as well to support them in their understanding of math conceptually. Again, not just the understanding of the algorithms, but how to apply them and when to apply them for both teachers and students. We also are changing our RTI structure, so we're also taking in consideration teacher input quite a bit as to who needs interventions in their classrooms. We started to do data meetings as well, whereby we're meeting with with groups of teachers who have students who might need intervention, whichever tier they are. We have 3 tiers of support, and so we're going to be working to create some targeted instruction in and out of the classroom for those students and be able to track them. We also are tracking students online through a program called RTIM Direct for the same purposes, using them with our data meetings as well. We also are adding Linkit, which is also a data tracking, which is K through 12, and that system allows us to be able to see students over time as well, which is nice. We haven't been able to do that previously. One thing that we've been trying to focus on since I've come to the district is providing early support for students. So one of the things that we're doing this year is the Phonics First in kindergarten. Every teacher was trained in Phonics First, and we are including it in those to build the foundational literacy skills, which are sort of essential for reading. So we're very excited about that, actually. I mentioned some of the staff development we're doing for the math, but we're also working with the staff development team to come up with some other ideas to provide some more support as well for teachers. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Debbie.
Thanks. So we have similar results at our middle schools. I'm really happy with our language arts scores at grade 6, where we saw tremendous growth at grade 6 and grade 7. Some of the success at grade 6, I think, can be attributed to a school-wide implementation of AVID strategies at grade 6, which is a serious focus on reading and writing strategies, but not just in the language arts class, but across all subject areas. So we saw great improvement in grade 6 and grade 7, where we have over 80% of our students achieving the expectations, which is well above the state average at both grade 7 and grade 8. And you could see when we talk about narrowing the achievement gap, the differences between schools is diminishing every single year, the more and more that we expand our reading and writing strategies across all areas. At grade 6, in mathematics, we also saw great improvement. Our success rate is not as high as it is in language arts, which causes some people to look at it twice, but the difference between our success rate when compared to the state is higher than it is in language arts. The math test at grade 6 happens to be a particularly difficult test across the state, and like Beninder explained, it focuses a great deal on modeling. And so students have to answer, I would call them non-routine problems, things that don't show up in a typical textbook, and really put their problem attack skills to work on those kinds of tests. So as we continue to add that kind of instruction and assessments into the curriculum, you will see our students continuing to do well. Grade 7 also does well. Grade 7 is a little bit tricky to see because we take out our algebra students, which are our highest performing test takers at this grade level. And grade 8 represents less than half of our students. It's a very difficult test to do well on across all districts because districts like ours, a high performing district, many of our students are already taking high school courses and then do not take the grade 8 test. Like Beninder explained, the grade 8 test was very park-like this year. It was online. It was the first time our students took it. We will not get the results back. Our high school results are very interesting and concerning to us because currently at the state level, if you're keeping up with the state legislature right now, there is a proposal to change graduation requirements again and reduce the number of park tests that students at the high school will even have to take as early as the spring of 2018. However, that vote was not taken, and so we do not know the status of those tests. But I will share with you the information that we do have. I do not have the AP scores nor the SAT scores in their entirety when compared across the state, and that's because they're not available yet. The College Board has held up. They provided us with our results, but I can't really report out to you how we did in comparison. So right now, the class of 2019, their graduation requirement has not changed, and that is that they had to have passing scores on either the language arts PARCC test at grades 9, 10, and 11, or 11, Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2, or a pathway, a passing SAT score, a passing ASVAB score, a portfolio appeal. We track this very, very closely, and we have not had anyone not graduate due to their assessment requirement. We know exactly what to do, so we're in good shape there. This is where the question starts arising. Currently, the legislation indicates that you must take the language arts and Algebra 1 Geometry and Algebra 2 PARCC. In other words, you have to take 6 tests in high school. The proposal right now is to reduce that to Algebra 1 and ELA 10, and so those are our main areas of concern. But again, that legislation has not yet passed. Our Algebra 1 scores are excellent. We continue to improve in every area. I'm particularly impressed with the double-digit gains at Edison High School and J.P. Stevens High School. Mid-year, the high school Algebra 1 teachers all got together and said, we need to raise the rigor. We cannot change this. And they absolutely changed some of the questions they were asking and assessing, which gave the students a different level of concern. Our geometry scores, again, are also very high, particularly when you compare that with the state average. We're doing well at all schools. Our Algebra 2 scores, again, are increasing. So I know our math supervisor is very, very happy. 3 tests, 2 schools. Increases everywhere. She's very, very satisfied with the scores. And that really has to do with the work of the teachers. There's far more collaboration, common assessments, sharing great ideas. And so the teachers are working really hard, and the students have really stepped up to the challenges that are being presented to them. Language Arts grade 9, we're doing really well. Again, we continue to show gains. Language Arts grade 10 will be the one place that I have some concerns, that I'm already talking to principals, teachers, supervisors about what we might be able to do differently. And I'll address that in our response to the results, particularly because we think this may be the graduation test. Language Arts grade 11 is not genuine scores because our highest performers, again, are excused from the test. Anyone taking AP automatically doesn't take the test. Many of our students who already passed the grade 10 test could have opted out. Most of our students took it, which was nice for us, but they know they didn't have to. At science at the high school was a very interesting test this year. We found out in the fall that we wouldn't be taking the biology competency test anymore, and it was replaced with the New Jersey assessment for science for all grade 11 students and included all of the standards. Biology, chemistry, physics, environmental science, earth science is all on the test. It was park-like. It was the first time it was given. I didn't hear too much about it, not positive or negative, but the students did know it was a field test, so more to come on that. So here's our AP results. We continue to do well in our AP tests. This is our number of students who are taking the test. I know the board is interested in increasing, as we all are, increasing the access to our AP tests, and we've started really working on that, but it starts in the middle school. So right now, you'll see that our AP numbers of students is relatively flat. Everybody who wants to take the test is taking the test, but pretty much the students who are taking AP, we knew who they were going to be in 9th grade and 10th grade, and so the numbers are pretty close to the same. However, the number of tests that we're giving continues to rise. So we have more students taking more of those classes. We gave 28 different tests for a total of 2,500 different exams, still having a passing rate of close to 88%, which is phenomenal. I expect that will put us on the honor roll again, but I don't know that for sure, which is outstanding. So in response to some of our results, I see great success with the grade 6 AVID strategies at Hoover and at TJ. And so we are expanding that school-wide approach at grade 7. And what that means is the language arts teachers, in addition to the social studies teachers, the science teachers, the math teachers, are using research-based instructional strategies that make nonfiction text and note-taking and writing more accessible, and so that has been really great. We're reviewing all of the criteria for success in language arts and math at all middle schools. Do we have kids in the right places, and is our rigor high enough? We've added math intervention support at every middle school and at our high school. We've increased the rigor and performance-based assessments in the math courses, so there are harder, different-looking tests in all of our math courses. And most importantly, we're focusing on literacy skills outside of the language arts classroom. We have some great partnerships already going on between the social studies department and the language arts department at both high schools. Amanda will join me for any questions.
When you showed the algebra and geometry scores, I saw that literally no student had scored at level 1, level 2, level 3 in some of the schools.
That's right.
So, but that is the percent. So 0 means 0%. So what is it in terms of the N? I mean, does it still mean that there were no students who scored?
That's exactly right. The number of students are there, and you'll see at our middle schools, no student scored at level 1 or 2, because if anyone showed any sign of struggle on their first day in geometry, we had other places to put them. We don't want anyone to take a high school class before they're ready, but they were ready.
Okay, yeah, because I just thought like for example, if you look at the number 264, and if there were 2 students who would have scored level 1 or 2 or 3, it would have still shown less than 1% or closer to 0. So I just wanted to make sure. So that's pretty remarkable. Yeah. And just one more quick thing. Where students are not doing so well, actually, you know what, I will hold my question because I don't think the Spark test is going to stay.
Okay.
I just have a question that in the recent school ranking, both Edison High and JP dropped. One of the reasons is the student-teacher ratio. We
That's
know
right.
that. And also the other is the graduation rate, right? So with the new graduation requirements for 2019 or 2020, what do you think the impact is going to be to those 2 high schools?
We looked at some of that school ranking in New Jersey monthly, and some of it's based on AP tests. And one of the things we want to do is make sure our data is clean. But our graduation rates should go up. Our passing rate should go up. We've been very on top of the testing, the assessment part of it. So we're doing well with every student we can keep in school, and every year that percentage is going up.
Okay, but obviously this year it dropped, so I hope that the next year comes back, because the rating of the schools does have a significant impact, on the values, on the properties in the district, and that's what we need to do is make sure we stay at the top. The overcrowding and the student-teacher ratio, we're addressing this, but, that's slowly, but at least for the academics, we should not be dropping on the graduation rate.
That's right, and by achieving our goal of
Yes.
allowing greater access on the AP classes, that's going to help us as well. That's
The
another
other
big
thing
part.
that we talked about is the availability of the students who wants to have SAT preps in the summer. Are we looking to expand that? Because last year, my understanding is you have more students who wants to take the prep course, we just don't have enough seats for them. Is there any way that in this new school year we can expand that?
I expect that we will do that. I believe that we'll report out on that with our CTC minutes as well. But we opened with 2 sections and we ended up filling 5. So we had every student who wanted to take it was able to do that. We'll
Okay.
open with more next summer.
All right, thank you.
Can I just add a comment?
Yes.
So I just want to thank the parents because the SAT program that we introduced, the input came directly from the parents, and I brought the recommendation to Deborah Gulick, who was in a very short amount of time. She instituted this summer program. And talking about the rankings, I just wanted to add that there are various rankings that various magazines do, and some of them, for example, the niche. Actually, it's very important to look at the methodology because the niche ranking also takes into account surveys, and surveys, as everybody knows, has a very high could have a very high rate of error. And especially in that, some of it is parent reporting. So I could be a parent living in Wachung, and I could actually report on an Edison school saying that it's not good. So it's very important to also look at the methodology because that makes a lot of difference in terms of how schools are ranked.
And the other thing that you mentioned is the offering of the AP tests, right? Last year we had a couple of subject areas that we have quite a number of students who want to take the AP tests. Unfortunately, those AP tests are not offered in our school. So moving forward, are we still looking at the same policy? We're offering the AP test. That's our school. Our schools are offering, or are we looking to expand? And also, is it a possibility we can work with the neighboring districts to see if they offer something that we don't offer, and provide our students with the opportunity to go to the neighboring district to take those AP courses? Because for some of the classes, as you know, we talked extensively for one of the subjects. The students enrolled in the program for a whole year. At the end of the day, they could not take the AP test. They put a lot of effort into it. The parents put a lot of effort supporting the kids, but that's we couldn't offer that. So I want to see that we can expand that more and give the kids more opportunities.
So we're looking at it very closely, and I'll be happy to bring that back to the curriculum committee with a strong analysis of what that looks like. I polled every single student who took the test to find out which class they were in. Our highest performers perform well when they're taught by our teachers. And so in as many cases as possible, I would like to expand our offerings here. I want AP Computer Science principals to be here as early as next year to try to generate interest in AP Environmental so that we can keep that enrollment. But we need to expand the access because we have the same 700, 800 students taking all of the tests, and I'd like to expand the access and make sure our students are learning in our building. That's going to guarantee their success.
And also, as I said, it's because we have been helping other districts. They don't offer the same AP tests. The Edison is taking their students. Can we ask for return that, some of the tests are offering in other districts we don't offer, and gave us the students opportunity to go there to take the test? It's collaboration, cooperation between the neighboring school districts.
Yeah, we'll look into that. It's possible for some it's not.
Okay, thank you.
I had a quick question. I see that the number of kids taking the AP classes at JP is almost double that of Edison High. is there anything we can do to kind of, make that number a little bit more equal?
I'm trying very hard. We are working very hard on that. The one thing is that Edison High is growing to almost rival the size of JP at this point, with over 2,000 students as we sit here today, which is their highest enrollment that I can find on record. And JP is at about 2,500. But including the other thing we have to do is continue to talk about how great the AP program is, and let students have access to it. So when we prevent a student from taking an honors class in 9th grade, it's hard to get to AP. So we're trying to bring in as many students as we can, and you could see the success that they're having as early as 8th grade will inspire that. But it'll take us maybe 2 or 3 more years to feel rival numbers. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. All right, so move on. Margaret?
Thank you, Mr. Shi. Moving on to the section for administrative items regarding the school self-assessment for anti-bullying. As required under the New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill Rights Act, districts are required to report the results of each school for the prior school year. The information attached to the board agenda is for the 17-18 school year. Each school, through its school safety and school climate team, is required to evaluate its implementation of the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights from July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018 by using a self-assessment tool. The self-assessment tool used includes 8 core elements that address the anti-bullying rights requirements for schools. And the school safety, school climate team must assign a rating for each indicator based on the criteria and the available documentation. It is essential for school staff to maintain sufficient documentation that will substantiate its ratings on each indicator. The maximum grade a school may receive remains at 78. All Edison schools passed. Regarding the next item, Memorandum of Agreement, the Ice Hockey Parents Association Incorporated. This agreement continues to provide a cooperative sports program between Edison High Schools and Metuchen High School for the 18-19 school year. Approval of administration of the PSAT for grades 8 and 9. PSAT 8/9 to grade 8 students. This proposal is to administer the PSAT 8/9 to all grade 8 students in December of 2018 in order to measure what students have already learned, shows them whether they are on track for college, and lets them know where they need the most improvement. Scores will be reported back to parents and will be used as part of the grouping procedure criteria for the 19-20 school year. Assistant principals. Due to an increase in enrollment and a high student-to-administrator ratio, there is a recommendation before the board to approve 8 assistant principals, 2 of which will replace 2 vacant supervisor positions, with the other 6 being new positions. These 8 assistant principals would be distributed thusly: 1 at the preschool, 5 at the elementary, and 2 at the middle school. If approved by the Board of Education, these positions could take effect January 1st. On a personal note, I would like to welcome Patrick McDonald, our newly hired district videographer, behind the camera. And I would also like to thank Dennis DeMayo for pinch hitting this summer and stepping up to the plate. We thank you very much for recording. Regarding curriculum and instruction, there are 5 additional revisions for the 18-19 school year. Please note, all of these guides were in place for the opening of school. A memorandum of agreement with Middlesex County College. This MOA allows J.P. Stevens and Edison High School students to earn college credits during regular school hours by taking specific approved courses. The the curricula for which matches that of Middlesex County College as part of their high school scholars program. There are also 5 field trip approvals for a marching band, FCCLA, and a cheerleading competition. And the final item under curriculum and instruction is the professional development documentation for staff members to attend out-of-district events. The final section in my area is for pupil and special services. There are several out-of-district placements. Some are terminated, some are returning to district, and there are also several new placements that are identified on the report. The nursing services plan for the 18-19 school year has the annual update of names, and there is a revised professional services plan for the 18-19 school year, which reflects a negotiated reduction in rate. Thank you, Mr. Shi.
Thank you. All right. So then, finance.
Okay, thank you. If you'll turn to your investment page of your finance report, you'll see that the investments for August, we received $28,074 in total interest, bringing our total for the year up to $54,411. The resolutions that we'd like to have approved tonight, first one's for an appropriation of homeless children's funding. This is for some items that we ran over in our original budget, mainly because of the new enrollment we have. And you'll notice it's in the educational supplies, which is mostly in the area of computers. We had to buy some additional computers because we're up, last I heard, over 350 new students. Textbooks, we had to buy some additional textbooks, and as you'll see, there's 3 lines going into the IT department. For those are for the additional services we need for our expanding technology department. Second item is for a memorandum agreement with the Monmouth Ocean Educational Service Commission for Edison students to be eligible to use the New Jersey virtual schools for the high school students for our district. We need to have a board resolution in order to access that software for our students. Next item is a memorandum agreement with Morris County Educational Service Commission for joint transportation services. We try to incorporate as many counties as we can, so if we have a problem getting transportation routes covered by Middlesex or by Somerset or some other ones that we currently have. We haven't had it with Morris at this point, but I understand they have a very active joint transportation service, and I'd like to be able to access that if we need to. And by having this resolution passed, we would have that opportunity to do that. Item number 4 and 5 and 6, these are increases, actually, and 7. The non-public monies we received that we reported last month, the state actually came up with an additional amount because there's another non-public school called STEM Academy. It's called STEM Academy for Kids. And there was an additional school, so they gave us additional funding. So I'm having the board re-adopt the acceptance of the state aid funding for nursing, $208,453. In textbooks, it went up to $112,835. In technology, it went up to $76,068, and in security, it went up to $161,175. These are only for the non-public schools. We don't get an opportunity to use any of it. However, we do have to administer the services and also approve the purchase orders in advance. Item number 8, we had a finance meeting recently, and last week actually, and we had a proposal that came in from SSP Architects for a full-blown long-range facilities plan update. And the fee that they proposed was $75,000, which was lower than the $84,000 we received from USA. And our committee recommends that we approve the long-range facility plan update to SSP Architects for the amount of $75,000. The next item is a submission for the modular classrooms at FDR building. The architect, USA Architects, is very close to being ready to submit that to the state. And instead of waiting for him to be ready, we want to give him authorization, so when it is ready, there's no delay. So we'd like to have that approved for tonight for submission of those plans. Item number 10 is approval for some non-public security aid monies for 2 schools in the amounts of $16,000 and $38,000. One for Rabbi Pesach Raymond Yeshiva and the other one for Bishop R High School. And the second one's for the technology monies, and this is for St. Helena's in the amount of $1,000. Number 12 is a list of obsolete items, so we'd like to declare obsolete for disposal. Item 13 is the bill list for August, and it's in the amount of $10,236,000. We provided a copy of the bill list to each one of the board members, and some of you have already called me about some of the things on there. And item number 14 is the renewals for all of the transportation routes that we had from last year. And I'm happy to say we were able to keep the contractors at 1%. The state would have allowed us to go up to 1.57%. We started with a 0. We couldn't get any takers, but we got them at 1, and I was very happy to keep it under the state max. So these are all the runs. You'll see there's quite a number of them, and we did add 1% to this, and we're renewing them at this point in time, and we have coverage for all of our routes at this time. And that concludes my report, Mr. Shi.
Thank you, Mr. Michaud. So just to reiterate, at the beginning of the school year, we had quite a lot of challenges with the buses. So with this, the re-awarding the bid, all the routes has been covered. There was no routes returning back to us, and that's all done,
We
right?
did have one of our carriers call us and wanted to turn 20 routes back to us, but we
Yes.
absolutely told them no. We actually called Mr. Rivera's office and pretty much said to them, if you want to back out of these routes, we're going to go after you for breach of contract, and they backed off. And so far, they've been handling it. I know we've had some issues of some lateness, but we've been working on that, and it's getting much better.
Thank you. Any comments from the board members on these resolutions? And also the other three things that was distributed out, the the settlement with Construction, and the two extensions, extension of Margaret's contract, and also the extension of Mr. Paul Sexton's contract. Okay? So now we're open to public comments. But before we open the public comments, last meeting, we had a suggestion of slight change of the, how the public comments are gonna be handled. So I'll let, Mr. Rivera to tell us what that's gonna be. Let's give it a try, and let's see that if we can control the, not control, we can have a better time management on the public comment section.
I always get the fun jobs. So at the last session, we talked about just streamlining public comment a little bit to allow for the public to deliver their comment fully without interruptions. And then what that means is you will still have your same time frame, full 6 minutes, but to allow the public to deliver their full comment, ask all the questions that you have while you're at the podium. And then once you're done, you can sit down and the board will respond to all of your questions. And we will go through all of the members of the public that want to speak and allow them to deliver the full comment. The board will then respond. And it's if there are further clarifications or additional comments that members want to follow up on, then the board president will recognize those folks to allow them to come up and speak once we've gone through the entire group of public who wants to speak.
I want to say something. I don't like this idea because, first of all, not everybody, who comes here can stay till the end of the meeting. If there are 50 people who show up and the first person who speaks, that first person should not have to wait to get the answers.
No, you misunderstood. No, you misunderstood.
Let me clarify, I apologize. So after each person speaks, the board will respond to any questions or comments that were made by that individual. So if I were to get up and speak, I would say my comment, and the board then responds immediately after the conclusion of that individual's public comment. And we'll go through that process for each person so that everyone will have a response right after they speak. But what we want to avoid is the dialogue back and forth, which is unfair to everyone who's sitting here waiting, because you exceed the 6-minute time frame with extended back and forth. It can lead to argumentative discussions, which are quite frankly not a good reflection of the board, and it's not necessary, it's just rude to go back and forth when someone is delivering their comment. So I think the fairer way to do it, and the way that's recommended, is that the public be given the full 6 minutes to say whatever they want to say about educational issues in Edison, and without interruption, and the board then, once they're done with their comment, whether they use the full 6 minutes or not, then the board and the district responds directly to those comments.
I mean, I still disagree because sometimes a follow-up question is more important than the original question. And as long as the whole dialogue is within 6 minutes, I don't see any reason why a person has to ask a question, and then, you cannot ask a further question at that point, because only when there is a dialogue, you are able to kind of get an answer. And this Board of Ed meeting is one of the only forums where members of the public can come and openly, get answers to their questions. And we do this only twice a month. So I don't think we should really, wait. We should let them be free and let them speak what they want to, because we as board members, that is our job. Whatever questions people have, we should be able to answer it, because the only way we can become better as a board is by following up on the critiques of people. Sometimes those critiques are valid, sometimes those critiques are not valid. So what we need to do is basically, take everything in a positive way and go from there, just inform the public, enlighten the public, and I don't see any reason why we should hold or make them wait.
The issue is the 6 minutes here, okay? If you have dialogues between the two, it's hard to control, all right? So that's the whole thing behind. Nobody is shutting everybody down, okay? People have the opportunity to answer the questions. If this question, the board will answer. It's just to reduce the dialogue in between, because we have seen in the past, comments goes way beyond 10, 20 minutes, okay? So it's just because of dialogue. So we want to give the person the full 6 minutes. We don't want to cut short on the opportunity they have to ask those questions or making comments.
So
that's the whole.
So I would say two things. The first thing I would say is that whoever is coming to the podium, let them decide, whether they want to indulge in a dialogue or they want to wait. Let them decide what they want to do. And because, otherwise it's not transparent. You just need to. And the second thing is that if there are only 3 people in the audience who want to speak, then we can give them a little more than 6 minutes. I mean, I know that we had the 6-minute time when there was a period where, you would have like 100 people show up. And at that point, we have to be realistic and give them less time. But then, if there are only 4 people who want to speak, then we can, definitely give them, instead of 6, we can give them 8 minutes.
No, the board policy says 6 minutes, so that just stick to it. And yeah.
Jerry, can you just clarify that when we speak next on resolutions only, because there are people here
Yes.
who are waiting to
Correct.
speak in the other part, so
Yes.
just make that clear.
Yes.
And Val had her hand up.
Yes.
Yeah, the concern I have with structuring the public comments the way we are proposing is that we as a board will have to remember everything that person said. And I think sometimes that's difficult to keep track of every question and then remember to answer it at the end. I don't know, that's just something.
So
that
why
I'm
don't we
concerned
give it a try the first meeting and see how it works? If it doesn't work out, we can always go back.
I don't agree.
Is this
We
something?
should vote on this.
Yeah,
I
is this
think we should
something that
vote
should
on
be
this.
voted on?
The board members should vote on this.
It's
Yeah,
not a
but we
voting
can,
item.
I mean, if you're introducing a new policy, then we need to vote on it.
It's not a policy. The policy is say 6 minutes.
Yeah, but whatever, this is a new system you're instituting, so we should,
interpretation of
so
the
all board
policy.
members should have an input. We can't just have one person decide.
Just one final point.
It's just a
When-
recommendation.
When an individual gets up to
Nobody
speak,
will decide.
the board could take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to provide a response. That would totally wipe out the person's time frame if the board took a long time in responding. It's not fair to someone who delivers a comment that the board response could be 2 or 3 minutes of their 6 minutes. They may want to take the full 6 minutes to say their comment. They may have taken time to write it and develop it, and it's something that they want to say. So it's really legally not appropriate for the board to be using the public comment period to respond. The public comment period is unfettered time for that individual to deliver their statement to the board about board issues.
I'd like to make one comment too. I wouldn't care if I had to sit here all night to hear what people have to say, to be honest. We have a good-sized crowd tonight. I'm sure these people came to say something. I was elected to listen and to speak, and I'm in agreement with Shivy and Fal on this. I feel very uncomfortable with the idea. I'm here to listen. That's my job.
It's up to you to make a decision. I mean, if the board wants to keep the standard that it's been doing, fine, but I think we should
I
pause
mean,
the
I have,
individual's time.
yeah, I just have a recommendation. What we can do is, when the person who's speaking, when they are talking, let's time them. But when we are speaking, let's stop the clock, so that when we are speaking, our time is not accounted as their time. So maybe that might be one way to resolve it.
We need a time counter. Yeah, I mean, I want to hear everything the public has to say. If you want to talk more than 6 minutes, I don't care really if you want to talk 12 minutes. As long as we give the public the opportunity to speak for 6 minutes, and then we come back and we speak to them, and then if they want to have a rebuttal and come back and we listen to them, as long as we hear all their concerns, it doesn't matter to me whether we deal with it one issue at a time or we deal with, their entire subject matter that they want to talk about. I'm okay either way.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we give it a try?
I think we should
before we actually shut everything down. Give it a try and see how bad it is, right?
I mean, I think there are enough board members saying that we should not do this, so I don't know why we need to go ahead with this.
Yeah, I think the majority is in favor of keeping it the way it was.
Okay, so you know what? If you guys want to keep it, and let's just concentrate on what we need to do for the district, that's what we're here. And the little things, that's fine. You want to keep it that way, let's keep it that way, but let's have a good timekeeping method, because I don't want to cut the 6 minutes short for the people who want to make those comments or ask questions.
Yeah, like I said, what we can do is we don't need to time when we are speaking. We should only time when the people are speaking. So then we are not cutting short their time.
And another point is if the people in the audience feel that they lost time by our rebuttal, they can still come up again after everybody's gone through. So there'll be a chance for dialogue initially, and if they run out of time, then they can come back and have another dialogue again.
That's what we said. They can have their question and they can come back and let the first timer ask all the questions. But if you guys want to stick with the old way, okay. It's really not a big deal. You don't want to try, it's fine. So
Let me ask one other question.
Yes.
Is Ramon or is Dan the official timekeeper with the stopwatch then?
Ramon does it.
Ramon's the official timekeeper?
I will do my best to pause it, control the time, but do not throw anything at me if you feel I'm doing, because if we're going back and forth in sentences, it's gonna be hard to follow. That's all I'm saying. I would recommend you try to get your piece out and be respectful as much as possible. All right.
Okay, so who wants to be the first one? Resolutions only. Let's look at these other resolutions. This is the first round of comments are resolutions only. So who wants to be the first one to give it a try? 6 minutes. Name, address.
No, status quo.
You have to be just as good as us. Elizabeth Conway, 20 Netherwood Circle. On the resolutions, I did notice regarding the superintendent, you're extending the contract of the acting superintendent and you're extending the contract of the interim. What is the status as a follow-up to the posting of a permanent superintendent? It may be outside, but the actual resolutions, but I think it goes together. That's my first question. Everybody got that? Okay. Number
Do you
two.
want us to respond?
you
or
can
do
get the response now.
run through your-
No, I want to see if you guys can do it. And then that will prove that you're able to answer all the questions that I'm asking. Number two, I noticed that an extreme, long teacher adjustments to their status, and the reasoning is due to enrollment. Now, I realize that the numbers are so high, and it's because of attendance and our student population, but is this the best route to go? You have teachers stepping up to give up their, thank you, their prep periods, and I'm sure they're doing it because they see the need to do it. But as a former teacher, that prep period is truly needed, and I would hate to see the teachers be overextending because of their diligence. That's number 2. Number 3 was your hiring of the 8 vice principals, 2 taking over for supervisors, and the other 6. Do you have them designated as to where they're going? Does that mean every elementary school will be getting a vice principal? 1, 2, 3, stop. Now it's your turn.
All right,
So you're giving us a breather.
why don't you address the first question?
Okay, so the first question was status of the permanent superintendent search. So that has not begun yet, but
The
See that?
extension, the extension.
the
of-
extensions,
Yes.
you want to know about the permanent superintendent, correct? Right, that has not, that process hasn't started yet. But you want to know, and the extensions will be through the appointment and approval of the interim superintendent by the county superintendent.
So I can add on the permanent superintendent. It is on the agenda to be, we're gonna do something about it. We have been very busy with all the other activities, so it is very likely the board needs to get together, call a special meeting, to have a discussion about what the job descriptions and what we are looking for the permanent superintendent. So it is coming, but probably in the next month or 2, we will have a special meeting for the whole board to sit down and talk about that. So that's your question number 1. Question number 2, Margaret, on the prep periods.
With regard to the .2 adjustments for salary, if you were to sit and piece together the .2s, it does not represent poor planning or a lack of foresight, but there are additional sections that pop up when you hit a certain number and the classes have to break. So on the secondary level, for example, there are 33 of those assignments on this agenda. Fully 10 of those involve teachers that are on a leave, and we were not able to get a certificated staff member. So other staff members step up to the plate for a short period of time and fill in for those. On the elementary level, due to an increase in enrollment, it's an additional, in a 5-day cycle, maybe 3 periods over a 5-day cycle. So it's not every day, but that's the way that's broken out. And this type of information was shared with the Teachers Association representatives, and I don't think that there was necessarily a feeling that we were overly taxing the teachers, and certainly teachers volunteer for it. So it's not that they are required to do this coverage, but we ask and they respond, they step up, they want to make sure we have adequate coverage. Yeah, I would be happy to respond to the VP, because aside from the little blurb that I could share with you, there is a whole proposal that all of the buildings, yes, would be covered, some more than others based upon enrollment, because it gives me the opportunity to share numbers. For example, the fact that there was research done that Edison's ratio of students to administrators is the highest for all similarly sized districts in the area. So it would allow us to address that. With regard to enrollment, we have several of our elementary schools approaching 1,000 students. Okay, so some of those APs are sorely needed. We presently have 3 APs at the 3 largest, but the other ones would be shared amongst 4 or 6 schools, and then the other 2 would be designated to an assignment. Fair enough?
Margaret, can I ask a question? Was this document shared with the public on the ratios?
I don't think so, no. This was the research proposal that was put forward for the board to consider.
Right,
The
I know in
movement.
finance and facilities, right, I
Right.
know that we looked at it there. Could you maybe give them some insight into,
The numbers.
yeah, the numbers, because, you know, that's really what swung me.
Okay. The K-12 student to administrator ratio, the state average is 159, that's 159 to 1 for the 2017-18 school year. And I would like to thank Mrs. Mahabir and Mrs. Gulick for their time, effort, and dedication. You know, I get the pleasure of sharing all of this knowledge and research, but I didn't do it. It really, it's to their credit. The 17-18 school year, Edison Township Public Schools had the highest student-to-administrator ratio of the 101 K-12 districts with more than 3,500 students in the entire state. Our ratio of students to administrators is 302 to 1. Woodbridge in second place is 222 to 1. Scotch Plains Fanwood is 188 to 1. South Brunswick, 165.2 to 1. East Brunswick, 173.1 to 1. And Piscataway, 166 to 1. Again, Edison was 302 to 1.
You have 3 minutes and 54 seconds left.
I don't like this. Sorry. My question is, going back to the vice principals again, so we already have Woodbrook, Menlo Park, and I believe Lincoln who had, and JMI had a partial vice principal. So does that mean, if we count the rest of the schools, so we've already had 3, we're adding 8 more, that would bring us to 11, and one of them is going to the preschools? So 10 schools would be getting,
Okay, so the proposal is for 8 new.
right,
8 new, let's leave the 3 existing off the table for a moment. 8 new. 2 of the new would be a restructure, if you will, of supervisory positions into assistant principals. And 1 would go to the preschool,
and there's.
5 to
so-
the elementary, and 2 to the middle school.
Oh, to the
Yeah.
middle school.
So let's take a look at the middle schools.
But you
So-
haven't,
So the middle schools have,
actually.
well, I would imagine that that is something that the board, it's still in a proposal stage, so I would rather not share it because that's still in discussion stages in the event that they would like to change that structure. But there is a 4-page proposal in my hand right now.
Okay, and regarding the posting of the superintendent, we're taking an extremely long time to just, you're very nice, by the way, and I've read all about you, but, and Mrs. Castaldi, you're wonderful, but I think we're really taking too long a period. Where do you see your time frame as to getting the posting going, the interviewing going? It just seems like, yes, it seems like a long term that this is taking, and I think we have many other problems in the district that we need to address, and I would like to see it at least moving forward a little quicker.
Thank you.
Aren't you going to respond?
I responded in the next couple months, we're gonna have a meeting to discuss what the qualifications of the superintendent, what the search is gonna be.
Will it be a complete board? Or
Yes.
just the personnel
Yes.
committee?
Yes, I said the incomplete board, that's why we're gonna have a special meeting. Otherwise, we do not need to advertise to have a special meeting, because it's a 4-person board, a committee, you don't need to advertise. And I stated, we're gonna advertise, the plan is to have a full board discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Resolutions only.
I'm sorry. Anthony Deameron, 15 Rodack Circle. Just to follow up on the superintendent, the last superintendent, I believe, left in June. And you made a comment saying that you need to get the job description down. It's going to take you another month or two. I just want to know, on the level of importance, where does that stand with this board and specifically the board president?
The superintendent left the district on August 2nd, and
Well, he
we-
left earlier than that, correct?
the superintendent, the contract with the district was on August 2nd. So on August 3rd, we appoint the acting superintendent, which is Margaret. She's sitting right over here.
Right.
And on, what is it, August, was it mid-August?
June 5/30.
No, we appointed Mr. Saxton. We approve it.
I thought it was August 27th.
July 18th, we appointed the interim superintendent, Mr. Saxton. We're waiting for the approval from the state and the county. So without that approval, he cannot be a superintendent.
Right, I understand
So.
that.
let me
You don't even
finish.
have the job description now, though, you stated.
Can I just jump in for a second? Number one, I don't think we should be interrupting each other, so
No, I
you
apologize.
should let Mr. Shi finish his comment, and he'll let you finish yours. Also, Mr. Saxton is not serving as the interim superintendent, he's serving as a consultant to the district. Mr. Contaldi is serving as the acting superintendent, just to clarify.
Okay, thank you.
So because the approval did not come, so Mr. Sexton was appointed as the consultant. And on the day-to-day job, Margaret is serving as the superintendent of the district. So as far as job description, yeah, we did have a job description with Dr. O'Malley, but we need to make some changes on the job description. So that's why we need to sit down together. And also, the whole board needs to sit down together as to moving forward, how we're going to proceed with the superintendent search. That's what it is. Thank you.
I just recommend a sense of urgency. You know, it's taken this long just to get a job description down. So I would recommend not stalling any longer. I think it's probably the most important issue before we move on to any further important issues that are facing this town and the school district. That's my opinion, at least. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerry, can I make a comment?
Yes.
I have a clarification, and I'm trying to keep my mouth shut, but I can't. So I'm just going to have to say, regarding the two preschools and adding a vice principal. So I just want to give you a little history. I was appointed the vice principal of the ELC and the FDR about 7 years ago. I was the first vice principal to be added to those two buildings, and I was followed by Jeanette Ball, and then I was followed by a vice principal who was split between the ELC and Lincoln. And then when she left, which was, I believe, last year, Mrs. Swayze, who was a special ed supervisor, was put in to the FDR and the ELC. So truthfully, what we're doing by putting a VP in the ELC and FDR is going back to what we've had for the last 7 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Any other public comments on resolutions only? Okay. See none, let's move on. So first, let's have a voting on the personnel report. Can I have a motion on that? Just personnel report. Mr. Brescher, Mrs. Maroney?
Mr. Patel?
Yes?
Mr. DiStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
All yes.
So next, we'll have the administration, curriculum and instructions, and pupil service. We're going to bundle all these three together. Can I have a motion on that? Okay, Mrs. Maroney, second. Okay, Mrs. Patel.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mrs. DiStefano?
Yes.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes, except on the field trip with involving me.
You abstain on that one?
Abstain, yes.
Okay. Okay,
Betsy should do too.
so carried.
Beth, you should also abstain.
Beth, you should abstain.
Oh, yeah, abstain on that, yes. Thank you.
On what?
On my going on the field trip.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to the convention.
All right, gotcha.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yes.
Extensions on the field trip.
All right,
She and Ms. Morone.
gotcha,
Just on the item there.
gotcha.
Okay, next up is the approval of the finance resolutions and the 3 new items we added in. The settlement with MM Construction, the extension of Margaret's contract, and extension of Mr. Sexton as the consultant to the district. Can I have a motion on that? Okay, Mr. Brescher, second. Have a second. Okay, Mrs. Patel?
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Mr. Stefano?
I vote yes on everything except the extension of the consultant contract. No offense to Mr. Saxton, but I think we shouldn't be paying for 2 interim or temporary superintendents. I think that is just poor planning or poor management or poor leadership that has put us in this position, and we just shouldn't be paying the extra money.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mrs. Peng?
Yes.
Mrs. Madiker?
Yes.
Ms. Maroney?
Yes.
Mr. Shi?
Yes.
So carried.
All right, so next we have 3 committees reports. So first, Curriculum and Technology Committee. Shibi?
Thank you, Jerry. So the Curriculum and Technology Committee met on August 21st. In attendance were Debbie Gulick, Baninder Mahabir, Beth Maroney, Shannon Peng, Richard Brescher, and myself. The committee reviewed the curriculum, which were updated during the summer months. These included Math K-5, Math 6, Algebra 1, AP US History, AP Government and Politics, Environmental Science, Chemistry, Biology, Physics, Elementary Spanish, Middle School Phys Ed, and College Composition and Literature. One key change is weaving 21st century learning standards throughout the curriculum. 21st century learning standards focuses on collaboration and conflict resolution, amongst others. Additionally, the elementary science, math, and ELA social studies curriculum were updated with the social emotional competencies, and phonics first was added to the kindergarten curriculum. Technology at the elementary school was another topic we discussed. The committee discussed reducing emphasis on technology at the elementary level. As a first step, kindergarten will no longer be taking iPads home. Starting this year, 1st through 5th grades are also not mandated to take their devices home and will only be taking it on an as-needed basis. The committee also reviewed the success of the summer programs for elementary students through summer enrichment programs and secondary programs. Hundreds of children participated in enrichment programs and sports programs at JPS. At the secondary schools, students participated in our credit completion program, failure makeup program, middle school transition programs, programming, and more than 180 students participated in our SAT prep class, which was a 4-week program that cost only $200 and reviewed for math and verbal exams. On textbooks, we spoke about the new textbooks for AP Gov and AP US History. The committee spoke briefly about the inventory of textbooks and online access for the textbooks. Supervisors are reviewing all accounts so that we can prioritize our piloting plans for the fall and the spring and develop a plan to purchase appropriate texts in secondary math, science, social studies courses, and elementary language arts. The committee is planning on developing a 5-year plan for textbooks, purchases, and curriculum revision. We have purchased Linkit for the 2018-19 school year, which will provide us with a more robust way of looking at data. The program stores all of our assessment data so that teachers can look at achievement levels of their students and make instructional decisions. Principals and supervisors will review data in order to plan for support intervention, activities, and curriculum updates. And finally, this is important for the 8th grade students. The committee reviewed the PSAT 8x9. It's a paper and pencil assessment that is highly correlated with the SAT. This assessment will be given to all 8th grade students in 2018-19 school year. and will be one of the criteria for the grouping procedures. And for acceptance into the STEM Academy, this will replace iReady and the COGAT test. This test will be administered in December. The PSAT is a nationally normed test and can be administered in one morning, allowing for less disruption to the school day than the administration of iReady diagnostics, which required multiple days of missed instruction. And the last thing is a high school transcript update. The format of the high school transcript has been updated to a one-page document and will be available for the class of 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Finance Facility Committee, Mr. Brescher.
We had a Finance Facility Committee meeting on 9/20/18 at 1 p.m. at the Education Center. In attendance was Richard Brescher, Jerry Shee, Beth Maroney, Paul Saxon, Dan Michaud, Rich Pepe, Deborah Gulick, Belinda Marabier, Chris Conklin, Margaret Cataldi, and Ken Taylor. The district's roofing architect, Thomas Renzi, came to the committee to update us on the condition of the roofs at our schools. He indicated that sections of several schools were in need of replacement. Mr. Renzi stated that he would prepare a priority list for next year's capital outlay budget along with estimated costs, and that he begin preparing bid specifications for the needed roof replacements. The committee reviewed two proposals from SSP Architects and USA Architects for preparation of a long-range district facilities plan. The committee decided to award the project to SSP Architects for their proposed price of $75,000. USA Architects' proposed price was $84,000. The committee reviewed a status report from USA Architects regarding the modular classroom project for the FDR school. The plans are being prepared for submittal to the NGDOE for approval. The proposed completion date is late spring of 2019. The committee reviewed proposals submitted by Land Associates for air conditioning the high school auditoriums. The committee requested that the district seek additional competitive proposals. Mrs. Gulick and Mrs. Bahar Yes, presented proposals for hiring additional elementary school principals. They proposed comparative students to administrator ratios that showed that Edison far exceeds the ratios of neighboring comparable school districts. The committee is in agreement that additional administrative help is needed in the elementary schools. The committee discussed the need to increase the maintenance staff by adding an electrician, a plumber, HVAC technician, and an electrician's helper. The district has been hiring outside vendors to complete many of the outstanding work orders due to the lack of personnel. The committee also reviewed the proposed shared service agreement with the township for the hiring of Class 3 police officers. The board's attorney will contact the township's attorney to discuss the terms, and the meeting was adjourned at 4:05 p.m.
Thank you. So next, I will provide an update on the Security Committee meeting. So we had a Security Committee meeting on September 13th at 4 p.m. In attendance, myself, Mr. Erico, Mr. Brescher, Mr. Sexton, Dan Michaud, Mr. Conklin, Deborah Gulick, and Margaret Contaldi. The school security specialist, Chris Conklin, was introduced as the district SSS. Mr. Conklin distributed the following handouts, which he received as a 5-day summer training for school security specialists. NJAC code specification regarding school security and safety, security drill record form, site visit and inspection of facilities review sheet, school safety and security plan review sheet, school site assistant visit worksheet guidance, school safety and security plans minimum requirements, New Jersey School Security Task Force report and recommendations, school safety and security plan review checklist. Mr. Conklin was shared that there's a possible new position being considered for school district school liaison officer. Discussion ensured on how best to utilize these resources with the addition of Director of School Safety and Security as proposed by Mr. Sexton. Mr. Sexton distributed a draft job description, which was reviewed and modified by all present. It was agreed to advertise for the Director of School Safety and Security position in the Star Ledger in the Employment Opportunity section on September 16th and September 23rd. The posting will be available online and on the district site for 30 days. The group discussed qualifications, desirable work experience, as well as salary and benefit parameters. Mr. Sexton noted the future work of the District of School Safety and Security will be to assist the committee with a review and revision of the current district security plan. The group deliberated over when security guards and or police presence is needed at school events and determined by administration. Police coverage of district events are discussed as well as the free schedule for athletic events, as well as a fee schedule for athletic events. Then Michelle sought guidance as to how to address the large increase requested from the police for their presence as such events, from $125 to $220, which is about $50 an hour minimum of 4 hours, plus $5 for travel is a new rate. The meeting ended at 5 p.m. Thank you.
Jerry, I wanted to add something to the curriculum.
Yes.
I forgot to mention that Paul Saxton was also present at the meeting, the CTC meeting. Just wanted to add that.
All right. So any questions? All right, so I actually have a question for the curriculum committee. There were discussions about the summer reading book of the book Torah. What's the decision on that summer reading book?
So there were the summer reading was not part of the CTC meeting. We met with the group after the CTC meeting was adjourned, and there were 3 parents who came, out of which there was one parent who had a 9th grader who had that book as an option to read, and then we had 2 other parents who were not 9th grade parents. And so we, and maybe Debbie can talk about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, go ahead, yes. I just want to find out what's the final.
We had a couple of parents express concerns about one of the choices on our 9th grade reading list. As you can imagine, we often have texts that some parents object to, and that's why we offer choices and don't really mandate any particular text except for in some AP classes, because that's required by the text. We annually bring together a community of teachers to review the most recent young adult literature and the recommendations from conferences so that we can make those options. And we want to make sure that there's something for everyone. So this particular book remains in controversy. There are some people that didn't like it. It is not required. It is not required to be discussed in class. I have followed up with English teachers, and we'll bring teachers back together to revise the summer reading list for next year.
Okay, thank you. So
Yep.
I just have a question. When all these summer reading books are put on the list, did the people who recommended those summer reading books, did they actually read the whole book?
I think this book was on on the required reading list last year also.
It's a required reading. It's
No,
not
sorry,
optional.
optional reading. I'm sorry. This is, I think, one of the 7 or the 8 books that kids could choose from. So this was one of the optional reading books even last year.
Yeah, so my question still stands.
I'm sure there's a committee that looks through
Yes.
it, you know.
Yes, between all of the English teachers that we have in the district, every book is read, and the reviews are read by publishers, by other English teachers across the state.
Okay.
Okay.
I have another question. I don't know if it's appropriate.
stay?
You can stay. It's for the curriculum committee. We have, some other parents are in audience here. We have changed our Chromebook from the 11 inches to from the 14 inches to the 11 inches right now. So, which is very, very small for kids at elementary school. Was that discussed at the CTC meeting, or? And
No.
who made that decision to make the change, and what's the impact on the cost? I don't know what's the difference, for 14 to 13 inch versus 11 inch, because 11 inch is very, very small.
Well, I think we have to come back to you with that information. I'd like to
Okay.
involve Mr. Barca before we address that. However, I know the quality of the Chromebook that we chose this year is better than what we were using, and it had to do with quality, not size of the screen. So I will follow up with him, and I can report that back to the CTC next month.
Yeah, but I would, recommend, to actually consider that, the cost is probably one thing. I don't know if that is deciding factor, but for a elementary school kids to look at a smaller screen on their eye and the fatigueness on that, so I hope that the committee can look into that. And the other thing is that I want to discuss about is that I heard that we have, the district entered a 10-year contractual agreement with Discovery. I guess this is probably before you. What is the plan moving forward? A 10-year contract with a software vendor, to me, is very long, especially if, we don't even know what the curriculum is going to look like for the next 5 years. So what is our plan moving forward on these long-term contracts? I hope that we're not going to have these long-term contracts with vendors to lock us in. I know there are some flexibility with the current Discovery contract, but I would love to see that we don't, get into something that long-term. That's just my take on that.
Understood, and we've met with the vendors, and Mr. Michaud is reviewing the contract with
Okay.
us, so we'll be able to address
And
it.
also,
you.
and also, we did discuss that in the curriculum committee meeting, and as I said in my report, we discussed about creating a 5-year textbook plan, and typically, that's how frequently districts change their textbooks. It's about 5 years, and that's what we discussed. That
Yeah,
we need to create.
I'm talking about software. I'm not talking about textbook.
Yeah,
I know
but software was-
textbooks last a little bit longer. The software is
But
more
Discovery is
frequent.
an online textbook. Discovery, and it's not a software.
Yeah, but to me, yeah.
Off the Discovery issue, I just want to talk about the book Tyrell for a minute,
Yes.
if you would allow me.
Yes, please.
So, I'm a former English teacher, and I don't believe in censoring anything. But when I heard about the book Tyrell, I told Mr. Shi I would read it cover to cover. To be perfectly frank, I read the first 30 pages, and I just couldn't force myself to go on. It was the most vile thing I've ever read in my life. It was truly, truly vile. The language was vile, the subject matter was vile, and I was told that maybe if I went on a little longer, it would get better, but I don't think this was appropriate language. I think that it was sexually far too explicit, particularly for a 13 or 14-year-old, and I was really horrified. But I want to make it clear that the committees, the finance committee, the curriculum committee, our job is to approve things, but we cannot possibly read every book that is suggested for summer reading. We do read the textbooks. We do look them over. We sometimes take them home and study them. I know Mrs. Peng has been very proactive about reading textbooks. I know Shivi has been very proactive about looking at textbooks, but we only approve. It's not the chore of the curriculum committee to read every single book. As soon as we knew, that this book was very distasteful, and what I just kept thinking the whole time I was reading it was, why not Richard Wright? Why aren't we having the kids read Native Son? Why aren't we having the kids read, really good literature that has been written by the African American community, not this piece? It was really vile. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And also, just one more addition, just to answer your question, Jerry. We did talk about, not having that book for next year. We did, at the end of the meeting, that's what we decided.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Jerry, I just
yes.
want to add something. Yeah, I do hear concerns about this Chromebook thing. There were at least 2 grades that's changed from 14 inches to 11, and that's basically from the screen size goes from this to about this big. and you can hardly see any like full diagram on this kind of screen. And I checked the price for 14 and 11. It's basically less than $10 difference if you just buy, resale. But I don't know what kind of price we're getting here. But I just want to say, for such a big change, which is going to impact at least thousands of students, I think the board needs to know about this and needs to have more knowledge about this kind of decision. That's just one suggestion.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, and there's one other point. Shivi did read in the report that the elementary children will no longer be required to necessarily take the Chromebook home every day, and therefore they won't be, I don't think, getting the kind of wear and tear that they did take. So if the quality is not quite as good with the slightly larger machine, it might be a good thing to take a look at that.
This is not just elementary. This is, I know sixth graders already got this 11 inches last year. This year, I think it's 7th or 8th grade in middle school are getting, and plus the 4th grade in elementary school.
We should have gotten access to it. I don't think the committee, got access to these books. We did not approve the smaller screens because it did not go through us. But I'm a problem solver, so I would say that for the time being, to resolve, maybe we can tell the kids to increase the magnification so the text size, is bigger, but the kids probably will have to scroll more. So, but maybe going into the future, we have to look into this.
Okay. All right. Any other board member comments?
Well, I have board member comments, but not on.
Oh, yeah. We're not, yeah. So announcement is the upcoming meetings. We're going back to the 2 meetings which is something I really like. I don't like a one meeting. So the next meeting will be October 10th at 7 p.m. in the Ed Center. And the public meeting will be 7 p.m. in Edison High School. Will be Monday, October 14th. So October 10th here and October 15th in the Edison High. All right, now let's open up for, open comments from board members. Yes, sorry.
First of all, congratulations to Edison High School for an extraordinarily great band competition on Sunday, September 15th. It was just a gorgeous day and a really well-organized event with lots of parents out, and it's just so spectacular to see this. And I just want to comment on how well-behaved the audience is at these band competitions. When the kids come out on the field to perform, there is dead silence in the stand. So people know the etiquette for band competition, so that's really great. JPS is going to have their band competition on Sunday, October 7th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I hope everybody will take the opportunity to come out for that event. If the weather's good, there's just nothing greater than watching the kids perform. I want to say thank you to our talented, collaborative, and exciting teachers for all those gains in the park testing. Just amazing, and I know next year is going to be even better. I want to alert the audience that we have with us tonight some J.P. Stevens students who are going to be bringing a concern to the podium, and I know they're nervous about coming to speak before us because we're so intimidating. So I just want everybody to be nice to them when they come up and give them an opportunity to speak. We're so proud of them for being here, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say. I also clipped an article out, Frank, this is for you. The real questions you should be asking your teacher. This appeared in the Ledger this week. So real quick, because I know it's getting late. This is an article on when you go to back to school night or to parent conferences, what are the questions a parent should truly be asking the teacher? So just very briefly, in what ways will my child's learning be connected to the real world? How will my child be assessed? To what extent will my child be setting his or her own goals? How important is student engagement in this class or school? And what skills and mindset should my child be developing in this class? And finally, how much time will my child spend preparing for and taking standardized tests? And finally, the most exciting thing to me, because those of you who know what I've been working on for the last 6 or 7 months, is bringing the Wingman program to Edison. So I want to model for you right now my attire this evening. Says John Marshall Wingman Program. And this coming Wednesday, thank you to the extraordinary leadership of Principal Amy Hoffman and her 2 Wingmen champions, the teacher champions, Kathy Gluchowski and Jen Rossiter. They are kicking off the program this coming Wednesday. We're going in to do training with the 5th graders so that they can start with the 1st graders in the month of October. What is particularly unique and exciting about this is they are the first out of Connecticut Wingman group to be kicking this off. We have right now over 20 schools in New Jersey signed up for the program. About 8 of them are here in Edison. And the other day, Ian Hockley, the founder of the program, was down here, and we had a conference phone call in Mr. Saxton's office, which he was kind enough to loan to us for the afternoon, in which we had a Wingman program done between schools in Texas, Connecticut, Utah, Mexico, and Ian and me here in New Jersey. Our Wingman trainer that trained us this summer had all of us together doing one of the activities. This is social emotional learning to help our children learn what empathy means and learn how to use empathy and be respectful of everyone in their community. I couldn't be more excited about this moment. It's groundbreaking. It's huge for Edison. It's huge for our country. So thank you to everybody for their support. I just couldn't be more thrilled.
Thank you. Yes.
So I had a few things, but I'll probably skip a few and then maybe talk in the next meeting. But the first thing I really want to talk about is a big shout out to all the PTOs. They work very hard. They raise funds for school activities, school trips. I know that many of the electronic signs outside various schools have been donated by the PTOs. So I just wanted to raise awareness about a software created by one of the members of the J.P. Stevens PTSO, and it's called the Parents Circle. And it's basically a forum which is where different members of different schools. No, sorry. So it's a software where parents can sign up, and it's like a Facebook for parents, except that it's strictly limited to parents. And so if somebody has a question, other people might have the same question, and they might not ask. But when there is a forum, then there can be an exchange of ideas. There could be discussion. And the most important part of this software is that the PTO is actually able to raise money more easily. So there are businesses that advertise on that page, and I know that J.P. Stevens, in their first month, they made $1,000 just on advertisements. And so, and I know that the John Adams PTO has also adopted the Parent Circle. So this is just kind of a commercial for the J.P. Stevens Parent Circle, which if other schools want to join this, they can contact the J.P. Stevens. They can write an email to jpstevensptso@gmail.com. And the best, part of this whole creating this whole Parent Circle web is that whenever there is an event in one school, they can easily advertise it, and so many people in the community will get to know. So it's like less advertising on outside sources or through word of mouth, but so that is something which is remarkable. So I would encourage all PTOs watching this to kind of reach out to J.P. Stevens, jpsptso@gmail.com, and they could guide you further as to how their school's PTO can enroll into this program. And this will definitely bring in more funds and resources. And I know there are 3 people here from the J.P. Stevens PTSO, and I would welcome you at the open forum if you want to talk more about your program. And another thing I wanted to talk about is the parent portal. I know many parents had a lot of issues, and it was very frustrating. Getting schedules at the beginning of the school year. And just one suggestion, right now, the system is getting overwhelmed. There's just one person dealing with all this. My suggestion would be that, when the parent portal opens, parents have to sign off on at least 20 different forms. So if we can just open the form portion of the parent portal maybe 15 days or 20 days earlier, and tell the parents that, this is your window, finish up your forms, and you'll be able to access your schedule on such and such date, then maybe we might not have the system collapsing. Because I know that, whenever results are declared, like, for example, the SAT results or the ACT results or other things where that many people will be logging on at the same time, there's a staggered release of those results. So maybe, do something like that so that there is less frustration at the end. And also just something for the transportation department. I feel like if the bus passes could go like in the middle of August, and so that at least there's one full week before the beginning of the school year, so that if there's any issues, people can just resolve it during that window. That would be great, because again, there were a lot of people who had trouble getting their bus passes. And also, if a reminder could go out that the bus passes have been mailed, and so that people can be on the lookout for it in their mailboxes. And that's all for now. Thanks.
Okay. Any other board members? Okay. I have some comments to make. So, Chevy touched on the parent portal. It's been an issue for the past 2-3 years. It's very frustrating for the parents. So I had a pretty lengthy discussion with Rich Benedict last week. So the issue we have is that the whole system is shut down for the entire summer. And it's open up, a week before the school starts. So we bounced down some ideas. There are certain things that needs to be shut down for the summer, different modules, but certain things can be open throughout the whole summer, like your transcripts and stuff, right? So he's looking into that, and also we're looking into if we can do a staggered approach of opening up. Let's say different grades or last name from A to K and so on. So just to reduce the everybody going in. So hope that next year we can see some improvements. The thing that we talked is not to have the whole system down for the entire summer. Okay, so we'll see what can be done with the technology. As far as the bus issue, for some of the buses, that if the district is providing the bus, those people who are 2 miles and 2.5 miles, I think that we can look into get the bus pass issued earlier. There are certain buses, for students that the district provide they pay a little bit less. The subscription bus, it's based on availability of the seats. This one that Mr. Brescher probably knows this better. We have to provide the bus to the kids who are, beyond 2 and 2.5 miles away. Then if they are passing through your street, and if there are certain seats available, we put the kids on the bus. So those buses that unfortunately we have to wait till the last minute because the enrollment issue. A lot of kids, parents wait till the last minute to enroll, and this goes up to another issue that we have for the past couple of summers is enrollment, right? Usually, the 2 weeks before the school opens, you have long lines that waiting to get enrolled. We made some progress this year. Instead of having parents, standing outside under the heat, we have we moved the enrollment here in this room. to have air conditioning. We have a staff to accommodate them, provide the water and stuff, so at least, it's not under the sun. But the other thing we can look into is maybe open up the enrollment a little bit earlier. But, for kids who are, in kindergarten, there's no need to wait for that. We can start enrolling those kids a little earlier. For the other grades, you might need transcripts and stuff, so you have to wait till the other school your previous school finish, or so on. But we can look into definitely open up the enrollment earlier. Those are the issues that we have seen. I just like 3 items I'd like to talk about. I just have an announcement. Starting in October, then, is that correct? So in Edison High School, we're going to provide halal food to the Muslim community. I have, raised this issue several months back, and I brought up this issue again at the last month's meeting. And very gracious Dan was able to make the phone call, and our food vendor is able to provide the food. So we're going to use Edison High School as a pilot. I have worked with the community, and that's the high school that's the school they identified. So we'll see how it goes. Hope it works out well, and then we can replicate to the other school. There's been a need from the community for a long time, and adding the variety of choices for the food, I hope that will bring our food grade up a little bit. The 2 other things I want to mention is the beginning of September, we have Brian Lara, who is the all-time greatest batsman for cricket. He came to the Woodrow Wilson High School to promote the 2019 Cricket World Cup. He brought up the World Cup. It's a really nice-looking piece of hardware. In attendance was Shivy, myself, and Mr. Brescher. We really enjoyed the presentation. Had a really nice talk with the kids. The kids really loved it, because to see the real thing, Then the other thing I want to say is congratulations to a Edison High School kid, Pranav Krishna. He is one of the 8 students who represented the United States to win the gold medal as a linguistic Olympiad. Okay? Linguist Olympiad. This is tremendous achievement, right? 49 teams from 29 countries participated in this Olympiad in Czech Republic on July 26th through 30th. And U.S. won the whole team, and our kid won the gold medal. So congratulations to Pranav. Okay. If no more board member comments, so we're open for public comments. Again, let's try to see how we can work out. But you know what, before you guys start, I like to give the opportunity to the high school kids, because they have classes tomorrow. I don't want to stay. So high school kids, can you guys come and ask your questions? If you're more than welcome to stay, but if you want to leave, you can leave as well, because I don't want you to be late for your class. It's getting late. Name, address.
Hello, my name.
It's okay. That's all right.
Hello, my name is Olympia Georgie, and I live on Livingston Ave in Edison. I'm a senior at J.P. Stevens, and I would like to discuss my experience in the hallways of the overcrowding. Like, my problem is that the J.P. Stevens has an overpopulation of students, so it makes it hard to travel in the hallways, especially when we do have like fire drills, or which my friend will talk more extensively about. And my main issue is that sometimes students bump into each other and it can cause injury, and it's just not safe for students to be traveling in those hallways, especially when we're given such little time to go to classes.
Okay, so I'm Summer Arvanitis, and I live on Wood Avenue in Edison. I'm a senior also at J.P. Stevens High School, and I had an experience during a fire drill where I was upstairs and we're leaving the building, and we were literally standing there for a good 2 minutes. And while I was standing there, I was thinking about like what would happen if that was a real fire or a real emergency, and that all this chaos with all these people in the hallway going down the stairs, we would trample over each other, and it was just very dangerous situation to be put in, and I feel like this is an issue that needs to be addressed, and
Thank you very much. We're not timing you guys, so you can say whatever you want. Okay.
So we would just like to know what solutions can you guys offer us so that we can be in a more safe environment, school environment?
Okay. First, you guys did a good job, okay, for coming to the podium and speak to us. And thank you for staying this late and express your concerns to us. But as you guys might not know that this district does not have a long-range facility plan. The last time we had long-range facility plan, that was about 6-7 years ago. So as in the finance facility meeting minutes that was just discussed, we just hired a vendor that will do the long-range facility plan. And at the last meeting, we also discussed we're gonna have a vendor to do the demographic study. So that will be projecting what is the student population growth. So we can put it together and look at the plan, have a systematic approach to the overcrowding issue. It's you guys will talk about the pure number of students in the building, and we also have other issues. Mr. Brescher mentioned about some roofings in some schools and all of that. All of those will be together in this plan that we're going to start addressing. Okay, we heard a lot of comments about the air conditioning, and we just had a proposal from our architect to air condition the 2 auditoriums, and the dollar amount is a little bit high, so we're going to rebid on that. So those are things that's being planned. Obviously, we cannot resolve it tomorrow. And at the end of the day, when you talk about solving the overcrowding, it's a money, right? So the district has been able to do something is to reduce the spending on some of the vendors, not impacting our education. The example we did is we switched our insurance vendor, was able to save $3.7 million, right? And we had additional state aid from the state. So that money, about another $3.5 million additional. All those money has been saved in a bucket, I call it, overcrowding bucket. That money is not going to be going into the regular circulation. It'll be used to address the overcrowding issues. So we are stashing these money aside to have to look at the overall plan. Then we can start addressing these issues. And in the past, we have been just doing the patchwork, and which is fix this, fix that. And we do not have a systematic approach to address it. And I hope with the long-range facility plan, we can look at what we need to do, and we're going to make it public as well, so people will see what is coming as to what we need to address. And again, this year, when I came on the board as the president, I want to make a dent to the overcrowding issue, and we're taking steps towards that. Unfortunately, probably won't see it before you graduate, but I hope that the younger kids will see something that's coming up. What we have been doing is to reduce the cost, is not to impact the education, right? We're paying less to the vendors. We're delivering the same service, but we want to save some money for the taxpayers as well. So that's what we try to do. Again, it's a long-winded answer. But just believe us, we are working on it.
Jerry, can I make a comment?
Yes.
Please? Ladies, I want to thank you for remaining this late. And in the immediate future, I would like you to know that tomorrow morning I will call Mrs. Polakowski and let her know what your concerns are and how you debriefed us very clearly of how you were very upset and nervous and anxious at the amount of time it took to egress the building. But if you remember, since you've been in grammar school, that's the reason why we practice these drills, so that, heaven forbid, there is an emergency, that you have a proper plan. So maybe, just maybe, the situation you found yourself in, there were too many classes exiting through one stairwell. And we just have to look at that, and maybe we can plan a little bit better. But I promise you, I'll call her first thing in the morning. I
Thank
hope
you.
that makes you feel better.
Thank you. Yes.
Just one other comment that we had was that we're looking actually for like a safety director now that's going to deal with school security. It would just encompass the whole safety concerns. You know, they would go, they'd look at the fire drills we do, active shooter drills they're going to go through with you, lockdown drills. They're going to train our staff. I mean, our whole idea here is that we encompass everything to do with our student safety and staff in our schools, and we protect everyone. So we're looking for this new position that we just posted. I don't think we have all the resumes back yet, but probably within a week or so, and then it'll just be a process of hiring some and bringing them on board.
I want to thank you also for coming, and Mrs. Contaldi, can we make sure that Ms. Polakowski speaks to the young ladies directly? Also, that would be helpful. And the other thing I want to say to you, because as Mr. Shi said, there's no immediate, it's not going to happen before graduation day on 2018. It's just not. But if there, God forbid it, a million times should be any kind of real emergency, if you can get your classmates and the underclassmen to stay quiet, to listen to directions, that is the greatest safety measure in terms of getting people out. Don't panic, stay calm, listen to directions, and we're going to try to get you some help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other high schoolers?
I'm a high school mom.
Okay. All right, you're going to take the call. Yes, please.
Okay, my name is Stacy Arvanitis, and I live at Wood Avenue in Edison as well. Just to double back on what they said, I know we talked about the overcrowding being an issue, but to me, it's more of a safety concern. I have a son who's in the high school as well. I know that with my daughter being a senior, the overcrowding is not going to help her or dealing with that, but the safety is what I'm most concerned about. So I heard earlier tonight that the enrollment there is like 2,500. I'm just curious as to what is the maximum capacity for the building? What was it built to handle? Because I know that it's well overcrowded.
Mm-hmm.
So then it makes me question the fire code. Are we up to fire code? Are they in compliance with that? I feel like there's just too many students in the building to ensure a safe evacuation if an immediate evacuation needed to happen. And that can happen at any time. So that's really my main concern and reason for coming tonight.
Okay, thank you. Dan, you want to address the capacity issue? What was the design for?
We don't only see the fire code, however, I can tell you that one of our biggest problems is, even though we put additions on the schools, which increases their capacity, we can't increase the size of the hallways, and that's really where the bottleneck is. And I know it's really bad. I know it is. I hate going through that school. When classes change, I go hide somewhere, because you can't get through there. But obviously, we can't increase the size of those hallways, or even the core facilities, the gymnasium. That's why we got to put a second one on. The cafeteria, same thing. Those are the core facilities where we have a lot of students have to congregate at some point in time, and that's where you really have a lot of problems. You can add in classrooms all over the place, but those core facilities, if they can't increase too, then you have problems, and that's what we're having right at Stevens. Edison High's falling right behind, but Stevens right now is the worst school in the district as far as overcrowding. And we are trying to work on that, but that is a problem, and I realize it.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
So, I'm a parent too, and I've been shouting from rooftops, for the last 3 years, that we really need to be, you just said it, what I've been thinking and what I've also been saying, that overcrowding has to be presented as a safety issue, because every enclosed area, wherever you go, it will say, capacity. And yet in our schools, we are kind of stuffing kids, and there is no kind of, rule, like how many kids we can stuff in. So I've been talking about it and thinking of we need to, petition the state and present, overcrowding as a safety issue and try and figure out if we can get, some type of a grant. Maybe there are 5 school districts across the state which have this, huge problem. And if we present it as a safety issue and, create a resolution, whatever that we have to do, and we should just continue to do that. Maybe we might get that, one-time construction grant where we can expedite everything. And so that might be, one way to proceed. But, I completely understand what you feel because I have a high schooler also and a middle schooler, and I know how bad it is. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead. Or you can take them home if you want.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, the board members. And I just wanted to piggyback on, by the way, I'm Shakila Burchin, and I live at 248 West Locust Avenue. I moved to Edison like 6 years ago. I lived in New York for almost 10 years. I'm an educator and a scientist by profession. And the reason I moved to Edison was because it's one of the best school district. So I wanted my kids to get the best education. This school year, the very beginning of the school year, we had an early dismissal, and that was because of the heat. And we talked about safety, but also health issue is also a big issue because we study climate change, global warming, and weather events for a living, and we train students, and it is a major, major issue. Recently, the city, New York City mayor has granted $29 million to just air condition all the classrooms. And I understand there are 400 high schools in New York City, but there are only 2 high schools in Edison board or few middle school. But what's the priority given to providing classroom air conditioning? I understand Mr. Shi said that you're providing air conditioning to auditorium, but I'm just wondering, what about the classrooms where the kids are staying for almost 7 to 8 hours every single day? And with this heat index, I can guarantee you, and I can provide the data, how much this heat would increase and how much this would be a problem. And what's the priority on the agenda of the board members to really provide air conditions in the classrooms?
Okay. So it's a tough question. All right, let's be very frank. Right? So air conditioning is probably used 3 months in a whole year. Okay? So we have a classroom with 30 kids in there. Okay? So what is a priority to, for the district? The overcrowded classroom, you talk about impact to students. You also have to think the impact to teachers. The teaching staff is there with the students, with 30 kids in the room, right? So to me, if I really have to choose between air conditioning and a classroom, I would actually start with a classroom first to first reduce the number of students in that classroom, and then we can have some relief to the students and the staff in the building, especially our teachers. They've been there for a long time as well. The other thing we can easily look into is certain policies that we have in place. We have the policy that all the classroom needs to be closed for security reasons. But when it comes to the hot summer, there is an option, which is to leave the classroom open. And to me, I think that we should have leave the classrooms open to have some breathing airway. And the other thing we can do is if we can reduce the total number of students in a classroom and we put fans in there, that will help a little bit. The issue with air conditioning is not the unit itself. It is a wiring in the building that we have very old buildings, and the wiring is going to cost us a lot of money. So the example of we are starting to address the issues, but we have to start with something. So we are looking into the auditorium for the high school because we have the plan that is in place. It's in motion. So little by little, we will get to the point of the classroom air conditioning. But to answer your question, unfortunately, If you have a 30 student in a classroom, the priority for the board is to reduce the number of students in the classroom.
Am I allowed for a follow-up question?
Yes, you can. Yes.
So there wouldn't be any priority given for air conditioning the classrooms at all?
What?
You're saying that your priority is to decrowd the classrooms, but I'm not sure how would that help with the heat condition within the classroom. What if a student is asthmatic? What if a student passes out? What if there's an emergency or a fatality? How would that be addressed? Because I'm a scientist, I understand the need for that. And that's the reason why the city of New York has committed to having a air conditioning in every classroom. I am just wondering why we do not have a budget to address that issue for a few handful of classrooms that or schools that we have over here. So I'm just trying to see the rationale between prioritizing the budget for providing or at least fans maybe or something, because the classroom conditions are very pathetic. And I'm sure many parents would agree with that. I mean, very fact that we had an early dismissal on the third day of a school year beginning is an alarming thing. What if we had the heat index for continuously for 2 weeks? So are we not going to have school at all? So these are some of the things that are interconnected to safety, to health, and also giving a safe environment to the students. Many students may not even remember to drink water. They might be dehydrated, or they could be many other issues that can be caused because of that. So I'm not saying that all classrooms should be air conditioned, but at least we should be putting that agenda to the township or the state or somehow to really create that kind of a safe environment from health perspective as well. So as safety is important, but health is important too.
I agree with 100%, safety and health. And all the new additions we put in have air conditioning. And the students and the staffs, they have medical conditions. We do put the AC in their room. And for kids, a lot of special needs kids, we do have air conditioning in the classroom. Unfortunately, we cannot air conditioning every single classroom at this moment. But if the student has medical conditions, please, let the staff, the principals know, so we can address any of those. And it is always a tough decision. I hope if you're sitting in my shoes, if you look at a classroom with 32 kids, that's Woodbrook last year, and putting an air conditioning, for the air conditioning entire Woodbrook, unfortunately, I have to tell you, the priority is to reduce the number of kids. And we can put fans in the classroom, and I think we can change some of the district policies, and I hope that will make these are the quick fixes that can make some differences. And, the air conditioning problem is not a one-day issue. It's been collected for so many years. It is because we do not have an overall plan of addressing this. And right now, we are making a plan to include all of that. Again, it's not going to come tomorrow, unfortunately. At the end of the day, it needs money, right? So we have been our taxpayer a lot of money on the property tax. We are looking for creative ways to see if we can address some of these issues and not put all the burden on the taxpayers. Unfortunately, Edison's school district, 85 to 90% of the school budget come from the taxpayer. And those are things that we are working on to reduce some of that. At the end of the day, it's money. If we have money, we can address some of those.
Well,
I know it's not the answer you're looking for, but yeah.
Absolutely, I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I hope you can put yourself in my shoes, and these sometimes it's a hard decision to make. Yes, you. Yes.
I just wanted to take 2 minutes to elaborate on what she was covering about the PTOs. So first of all, a shout out to any PTOs, PTSOs who are watching this.
You have to say your name and
Name
address.
address.
Sorry. So any PTOs or PTSOs that are watching this is?
Name address.
Oh, my name and address, sorry. Okay, my name is Rahul Sinha. I stay at 14 Harding Avenue. So first of all, a shout out to all the PTOs and PTSOs. I know it's not an easy role. It's a voluntary role. No one ever gets anything out of it. But they are doing this for the benefit of all the students in the school. And, as we in JP Stevens PTSO found out a few years back, just trying to get all the parents together, trying to have a forum where the parents can talk to each other is not such an easy thing to solve. So that's how we created this platform. Which is basically a closed community. Think of it like a Facebook-like community, except that it's closed and it's only open to parents of that school community. The school PTO and PTSOs are able to manage the members, so this way no one else can get into that community. There's moderation features to make sure that whatever conversation is happening doesn't get out of hand. But I think one of the most interesting thing it did for JP Stevens PTSO, which is where I think it would be useful to some of the other PTOs or PTSOs in this district, is the fact that number one, it allowed things like membership management, collection of fees to be done online versus the standard method of sending checks home and asking parents to fill it and send it back. But more importantly, it also allowed money to be generated from vendors. Like JP Stevens PTSO generated around $2,000 last year, and we have already got commitment of around $3,000 already for this year from vendors who are trying to subscribe and get their messages to the parents. So in a way, whatever money comes in will be used to support activities for the kid. This platform essentially makes it easy to get all the parents onto one forum where they can discuss with each other, and also it makes it easy for the PTOs to manage their members, raise money that will be used to support the activities for the children. If any of the PTOs, PTSOs are interested, they can reach out to jpstevens.ptso@gmail.com, and we'll be very happy to help you. There is no charges involved. It's a free to use site. It just helps the PTOs to generate money and to manage the community.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
JPStevens or JPS ?
No, JP Stevens,
spelled out.
yeah,
Okay.
jpstevens.ptso@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time. Please.
Yes.
One of the things that because I've been around to a couple of the PTOs or PTAs that we do have, and they're all run a little different, and they all have their own ideas on what they do for fundraisers, and some are very successful at certain things, and others do totally other things. I'd like to see some kind of a meeting where the PTOs do get together to collaborate on all of this.
I completely agree with that, because I think that oftentimes, the PTOs and PTSOs are all trying to solve the problem in their own silo. So, if it is possible for the Board of Education to help facilitate a meeting like that will be super, because I think most of the PTOs and PTSOs do seem to face the same set of problems, and I think I really love your suggestion in that just having a forum to be able to discuss and collaborate would be very, very good.
Okay, thank you. So let me just try to add something. So we at the beginning of this year, we have established a committee called Community Relations Committee. So that is to meet with the people from the community and working with PTOs and PTSOs to work on certain issues, to hear the feedbacks of the concerns. Unfortunately, due to some schedule issues, we actually had a meeting scheduled. It was a good program. It had to be canceled due to, I think it was weather, right? So blizzard, yeah. So, I think moving forward with this year, the committee will be resuming their meetings, and that I would love to see that the community relations community work with PTOs and bring the PTOs together to address the concerns, and we used to have a broader organization that coordinates all the PTS, so I just don't know what happened.
It was called the ETPTAC.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. So it still does? Okay. All right. Legally it is, okay. But I see a lot of activities. I hope that comes back again. And so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
All right. All right. I have to let Frank go speak first because he was sitting over here, so I'll give him a little.
Took time out too.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Frank Heelan at 55 Harmon Road, Edison. And I'd just like to thank all of those who served last year on the State Aid Committee, since it was so successful in achieving their ends. We set out to try to implement the real state aid, which was passed in 2008. And we met with Patrick Dignan, from the Senate, and Karabinchik, of course, and Pinching from who are Assembly people, and we also met with all of the at the different hearings, and of course we had those who served on it was Shivi Prasad Madhukar, who gave a terrific presentation, probably the clearest explanation of state aid that I've ever heard. That was terrific last year. And also Rich Brescher, who was a terrific politician in his own right, and had connections directly to it was Adam Weiss down in Sweeney's office, who was a graduate of Edison High School. And so he helped us along and helped present our case as well. And also Teresa Ward was also on that committee and came to some of the hearings down in Trenton with me. So, and I'm so happy that it did turn out well, and that even though it almost took stopping the whole state when it was a confrontation of our governor, who just wanted to take the mindless way out and say 5% for everybody. You don't have to think about it too much. Why be fair about it? And instead of that, Sweeney said, "I'll shut down the state on you." And so the governor didn't want that in his first year anyway. So he backed down, and Sweeney got the plan to put it into effect, so that, in fact, even this year, during the summer, we got $3.5 million, and that will increase to maybe $4 million, and it will eventually take 7 years to implement what should have been implemented back in 2008. You can imagine how much we would have had if it had been implemented, because the politicians directed it all to those districts that once were poor and then became rich, like Jersey City and Hoboken and places like that. So now, over the course of 7 years, we will have state aid. Many people, even when we started up in that committee, said, well, that's a waste of time talking to politicians and trying to get something done. But in fact, I think we do have a fair system in place, and that will take into account the increasing enrollment that we have in the different schools. So I want to commend the people, and certainly the people who had worked on that committee. I'd also just ask Mr. Shi about a bond referendum. Is there anything, I know, in order to, with this overcrowding situation, is there anything in the works still with I haven't heard too much in the papers or anything about a bond referendum. I know it's something taxpayers never want to hear, but in order to, it's the only way to really do it. I mean, putting it in the bucket will only get so much, as you know, similar like we try with the lease purchase with $5 million a year to extend some of these schools. But Mrs. Shi, maybe you could just address that on the bond referendum. Are we going out to the taxpayers to ask them to approve anything, or is there anything in the works for that?
Any other questions I can address at the same time?
Excuse me?
That's the only question you have?
No.
Huh? No more other questions? Okay, I can address that.
Okay.
So, when you talk about bond referendum, at the end of the day, it's a taxpayer who's going to flip the bill, right? So what we are doing compared to the other leadership before is we're reducing the overall school budget, okay? So even if, let's say, you increase 2% because your base is low, so it's not such a big impact to the taxpayers. So you mentioned about the overcrowding bucket. The money we put it in there is intended to address the overcrowding. We could potentially use that money to pay off the interest and the premium with the bond referendum. But as you know, that it's not an easy thing to go out and bond. So when we interviewed with the interim superintendent, that's something we looked at it as the requirements that have experience doing that. And of course, that is something that we need to do. But before we go ahead and jump onto, issue a bond referendum, we got to look at our long-range facility plan. We have to have a plan in place before we can go ahead and do something. And we have not had a plan for the past 7 years, in which you know that. Once everything's in place, then we can do our calculation. We can find a real, a correct amount of things that we need to go out and bond. And then we're going to do a hell of a lot of work to work with the PTOs and PTSO. That's why, we're talking about to push for the referendum. But at the same time, we do not want to put the entire thing on the taxpayers. We want to reduce the burden on the taxpayer using the money that we save to pay for that. That is what we are doing, because people are saying, what are you doing with a overcrowding bucket? The money just sitting there. The intention is to use that money to address the bond if we need to go out.
Okay, and it's good also to hear that you will be working on the air conditioning for the auditoriums in the high schools, because I think even if we just had a few classrooms, I know we had once looked to see what it would cost for one high school, and it was $1 million. I don't know how New York City could do it for $29 million for a place like that. But for us, it was $1 million for one high school. Now maybe you can get it cheaper than that. But even if you had like a major place, air conditioned, and then have some classrooms. I know they have that even in Metuchen, even so they can give the SATs despite the weather in summertime or whatever, that they can go into certain classrooms and just administer those tests. And that's really all I have to say. And I'd just like to recommend, even for the vote coming up in November, Shivi Prasad, who has integrity and has a great deal of competence and information, and also has worked so diligently on the curriculum.
Sorry, you know you can't do that at the public meeting, right? As the past president, you can't campaign at the board meeting.
I'm not campaigning. I'm just recommending. Isn't that
it's the same thing?
Is that impossible to?
Well, when you were sitting in my position, sitting in this seat, people were coming talking about that. And
Sure. They did that. Sure. I don't. There's no law against that. There's no law against recommending for me to recommend somebody.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to recommend her, and she also has worked diligently on the policy committee, and because she has children in the school, and it ranges from college to middle grade schools, she was able to get past something that if the children, when they go on vacation, say during the Easter Passover break, that they can also not have homework to do and papers that they have to write at the same time, so they could be free to have a family life together. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Is this my glasses? No, someone else's glasses?
You'll be here. I'll let you. The first timers. So, yeah. Can't do that. Can't do this.
Hi, my name is Tony Lee. I'm at 552 Darren Boulevard. First of all, what I'm suggesting doesn't cost any money. So it's free for you guys. I have a little speech that I created. I applaud the Edison School Board for their recognition of various cultures and the religions that represent our diverse community. While I do applaud you all to, that you included Diwali, Eid al-Fitr, and Lunar New Year in the school calendar, I'm a little ashamed when I look at the school calendar, because the school calendar doesn't reflect those holy days for Lunar New Year, Eid al-Fitr, and Diwali on the day that it falls on. It actually occurs either before or after those days. That's really surprising to me. As elected officials, what I'm asking for you is to clearly reconsider those days. I mean, it's 3 days, it's already been allocated, but it's just on the wrong day. So at the end of the day, what I'm looking at is we are a diverse community. As Mr. Shi, you were quoted at some point in Patch.com as saying that you're committed to diversity. If you're not willing to correct the school calendar to honor our cultures for celebrating on the holy days that it occurs in, then what message are we sending our kids? That's really my statement.
Thank you for your
Okay.
comment.
And will changes be made? Are you guys looking at it elsewhere, or am I the only person that comes up here to indicate that there's a problem?
We have
Mhm.
people brought the issue up, and
Okay.
the board has considered it, and that was the decision. It was to keep the date as it was. We had extensive discussions about the calendar, in the beginning of the year.
Okay. So that's pretty much it. Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joseph Johnson, and I live on 407 Durham Avenue. And I just have 3 quick questions. 2 in regards to diversity, and 1 in regards to something that is in this document. So, for those of you on the curriculum committee, what is JP Stevens doing, as well as the Board of Education, doing to implement the New Jersey State Amistad Bill, which became law in 2002, that ensures the Department of Education and New Jersey implement materials and texts which integrate the history and contributions of African Americans?
Okay. What other questions?
I would like that question to be answered first, and then the other questions.
So your question is, what is the district doing with respect to the Amistad Bill?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like Deborah Gulick to respond to that question.
It is reflected in.
Yeah,
our
go to the microphone.
It's reflected in our high school social studies curriculum.
The specific question said what is being done and what is implemented in our social studies curriculum to reflect that.
I can I'll follow up with the CTC committee. I'll pull the actual documents from our social studies curriculum, meet with the supervisor, and share that with our CTC committee. Maybe we can report that out next month.
And maybe leave your information so we could email that to you.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you. And then I just want to share a quick experience. I just graduated from Monmouth University. I graduated in May, and it's just unfortunate that I have to go to college or a secondary education to learn more about my own culture and to learn more about my history. And as you can see, African American history has been history from centuries, and it's really upsetting because we talk about identity and knowing yourself and knowing, especially someone who's 13 through 17, and that's the age of development and a key age of development, and we lose a lot of people within our district and within just who they are when they have to go somewhere else to learn about who they really are.
Can I respond? I think if you were going through the Edison public schools now, you'd find a very different scenario. I want to just reference Ben Franklin for a minute, okay? So Ben Franklin every year has a 3rd grade program that's very extensive. They do it around January, February, around Dr. King's birthday, getting close to African American History Month in February. And they have the entire 3rd grade involved in this program, and then they have the rest of the students and parents come in, and every year the program gets more and more intense and extensive. And it's a tribute to Dr. King's life with other events and music woven in that the children perform. It's about an hour long, and it's true. They wear costumes, and it is truly unbelievable, and you leave there wanting to cry. Right, Jeff? Mr. Bowden's always there. It's awesome. Also, I want to mention African American History Month, and this is from my experience as a vice principal at JP Stevens and at Woodrow Wilson Middle School, and reading the activities that are reported to us on an annual basis for February. Schools on a daily basis incorporate important facts, people who've contributed, not just African Americans, but all people of color. At Lindenau, they have a 5th grade program. Jerry Campione could speak to this. Jerry, you want to take the podium and just talk about that for a minute? Yeah.
You put him on the spot.
Sorry, but you asked.
That's all right. I had nothing else to do anyway. Yeah, actually, well, we started this a number of years ago, and it started out as a one-class project, but it's since become a project throughout the entire grade, where each student is invited to celebrate his or her own culture. And it started out as a writing project, and it has since evolved into a project that encompasses every area of the curriculum, and it culminates with our International Day, which is a day where we celebrate not only our diversity, but parents also bring in foods from various cultures, and we provide a full luncheon for everyone. The program is now extended even into include music and dance, and we do a dance production as well. So it has evolved, and over the years it has really become, it went from a 45-minute program to something that pretty much encompasses an entire month of work on the part of the students across the entire curriculum leading up to the celebration. And it's something that we're very, very proud of. It's a great program.
And each student does a personal presentation about his or her background, and they have to do a PowerPoint. I also want to mention ETEA helps to sponsor this event, so they're very involved in it. And it's not just a luncheon, it's a feast unlike anything I've ever seen anywhere, the food that comes in. And so there are children, from all communities. It just makes you want to burst with pride. So that goes on across the curriculum. You could go into any school today. I think you would be very surprised and very pleased, not to say it's all there yet.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I do know also that our history books now incorporate African history, which I can tell you I never learned when I went to school. It was strictly European history. So more and more textbooks are reflecting the diversity of our country, the world. And as I mentioned the other day, we conferenced with a school in Mexico, which was one of the most awesome things I've ever experienced in my life. And as we learn how to use the computers more and more for conferencing like that, pretty soon we'll be talking to kids in Africa, let alone African Americans. So it's really kind of cool. Thanks for asking.
Oh, you're welcome. Maybe going forward, I think maybe we can have a diversity club to share their experiences.
There are a lot of diversity clubs.
Okay. And I just have two other quick questions. I just want to know how much time I have.
You have 3 minutes left.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, I don't really know the statistic, but what are the demographics of the teaching in J.P. Stevens as well as Edison, and as well as the Board of Education, and why are there such low minority African American men as well as Hispanic men teaching within our district?
Who wants HR? Who wants to address that?
I was just getting ready to look up diversity clubs because I know I saw a few on here for the co-curriculars. All I can say is that we advertise across the state. Principals and administrators and supervisors do a paper screening and select the best candidate for the position. But that's the best answer I have for you, hon.
Okay. And lastly, if we can all just turn to, should have had it ready, but if we all just turn to one of the last, I know I'm taking my time up, but
What are you looking for?
It's a question in regards to the Woodrow Wilson football team. Yes, it's right here. I apologize. It's on page 35 of 36 in this specific document. Yeah, my apologies. The personnel one, yeah.
What page?
On page 35 of 36. The final last bullet. And it says 2018 to 2019 coaching appointments. Fall football, Woodrow Wilson Middle School, Coach Mondano Vincent, $2,744 stipend, step one. Well, two questions. Two sub-questions on that main question. I am a football coach for the North Edison Shamrocks, and that specific age group is our target audience. And how is that? That's I think that's a conflict, because if we have two teams less than 2 miles away from each other, then how would that work? As well as safety, there's a lot of rules going now, specifically dealing with safety of athletes and young children athletes, youth athletics. So is this actually happening? Is this a proposal? What's going on with this? And is the team actually being formulated?
Can I just, I don't think that we have a middle school football team. We have a high school football team.
It says right here
Right.
that there is.
If I'm not mistaken, he's a teacher at Woodrow coaching J.P. Stevens.
Oh, okay, that would,
Fairly certain.
Yeah, there's no middle school football team.
yeah, we have no middle
It says
school football.
fall
We used
football
to,
in the first
years
line.
ago.
I see that, I see that.
And I know that Vincent Mondana was actually an assistant hockey coach for the combined teams. But I don't know if he coaches anything else.
Is there a middle school football team?
Not at this time.
No.
So this may
It's
just
probably
be
a typo.
unclear?
It's probably a typo.
Okay.
Something we can
Maybe it's-
clarify
yeah.
and bring up at the next meeting?
Okay, I'll just.
It'll be in the next agenda as a correction.
Okay.
But, just, when they had it in the middle schools, it was ninth grade. Like John Adams had it was called the Knights, but it was ninth grade, so like 7th, 8th graders weren't playing. They were playing Shamrocks.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Jerry,
Yes.
I do, can I
Yes.
say something? I do feel that I have to address your issue. I was debating should I do it, but, about the lunar calendar thing. We had celebrated Lunar New Year for years, and we never get the dates wrong. This year it's special because it falls into a Tuesday, and just like Christmas, a lot of Chinese people they celebrate the New Year either on New Year's Eve or the New Year's Day. A lot of people prepare a big feast on the New Year's Eve. So we do ask around, and in the community, a lot of people prefer to have the day off on the New Year's Eve. So that's why we have moved, make the day off on the New Year's Eve, which is a Monday, which is also giving a lot of people basically a long weekend type of thing. If they need to go out, if they need to visit families in neighboring states, they can do that. They're going to have more freedom to do that. So this was discussed actually within the community for a long time. It was actually the calendar was proposed, I think in December or some time frame, and then it was finalized in like May. So we there was a long time in between where concerns can be brought up and discussion can be brought up too. So we did, but it was finalized because a lot of people in the community prefer to have the day off to make it a long weekend. Also, they can prepare the New Year's Eve feast celebration. I don't know about the Diwali. I just knew that basically 2 weeks ago when I got an email saying the day was off. So maybe Shivi can shed some lights on that. I don't know about that day. was
About
being off.
Diwali, both Fal and I have been talking about it, that Diwali, the day that we've got off for Diwali is actually not the actual Diwali date. It's, it's I think the following day is Diwali day, but I think what is happening is that that day is also, I believe, election day. So then I think Fal can probably talk more about the Diwali holiday. Because she is the one who's been because I do understand that next year we need to kind of consider this and make sure the holidays actually are the days of the festival, because even for Diwali, if that is not the day of the festival, then it really serves no purpose, because that's the day we do whatever that we have to do. Diwali is the biggest Indian holiday. I mean, it's a religious thing, religious day, and we have to do a lot of preparation. So obviously, going forward, we would want the holidays to actually fall on the day when it is to be celebrated, and not just clump it with another day.
Yeah, you got.
So if you want to make a comment,
You can go to the podium. Okay.
So, I do understand that. I mean, I wasn't looking at the calendar. I looked at the Asian calendar. I looked at this, and it didn't match up. I'm trying to get a response or at least understanding as to what has happened. And I did, you know, at first I was just looking at Lunar New Year. So I'm like, okay, maybe you made a mistake. Then you're looking at Diwali, and that's also a mistake. And in both those situations, you're having it the day before, right? So you can say, okay, we're going to celebrate the Eid because everyone's going to prepare. But then you look at Eid, that's new. And that's celebrated the day after. So now things don't make sense.
I thought that the Eid was
No,
on the day of Eid.
The Eid is a
Yeah.
correct date. Okay, so if you want to continue to this, I can explain to you why. Right. So I actually responded to the emails from the community.
Okay.
About the Lunar New Year. I can talk to you offline because I don't want to take a lot of time on this. And I said we had lengthy discussions on this, and that's what the team has decided to move forward. But I can, if you stay, I can talk to you offline. And if you want Farrell to address the Diwali and Farrell's back, you want to address the Diwali and Farrell, you can address, because I was copied on quite some of those emails with Dr. O'Malley. So you want
Yeah,
to say
so
a
I had
couple
brought
words?
up this issue to the prior superintendent when we were talking about the calendar. And the concern was that Diwali is apparently celebrated on two days in India. Some parts celebrated on the 6th, some parts celebrated on the 7th. So they chose the 6th because for schedule purposes, it just worked out better. Personally, I don't like that answer because I know majority of the Indians do celebrate it on the next day. But because this calendar was already set at that point, we decided to leave it as it was and, going forward to make sure that it's reflected for the majority of when India celebrates Diwali. For Lunar New Year, I had also brought that up to Jerry, and he's, said that, it was discussed with the community, and that was the date that they were okay with. So those are the two holidays that I know about, and I totally understand your concern, and I'm hoping for next year that we, make sure that the holidays are celebrated correctly.
Yes.
Can I answer?
Sorry.
Just to piggyback off of this.
Well,
I just
wait,
have-
wait, she-
No,
she-
you just
she's
say, I
gonna
just have to
this,
answer
then
a
you have your-
question.
You have your chance.
Please
to-
stay at the podium.
Yes, you can stay
Please stay
there.
at the podium.
Yeah.
I'm going to take 2 seconds. Mr. Johnson, the answer is it's a fall cross-country coach. It's not football, so everything is right with the exception of the sport. I'm sorry for any anxiety that caused you.
Okay, it's your turn.
Great. So my name is Jessica Chang, 13 Warner Court, Edison, New Jersey, obviously. So just to go back to your point in that Diwali is celebrated 2 days in India, and how the school board had chosen the first day, that's technically more celebrated day. However, I'd like to point out that Yom Kippur also has 2 days, and, sorry, just referencing the calendar very quickly. Sorry, you're correct. Rosh Hashanah has 2 days, the Monday and the Tuesday. Then speaking on educational continuity, which I know that was a point brought up in the debate on which day to settle for these holidays, is that we have Tuesday, November 6th off for Diwali and Professional Development Day. Then kids are required to go to school Wednesday, so Monday of that week, Wednesday, when they're then given off Thursday and Friday. So based on that argument, I'm not sure how that makes sense if we're talking educational continuity. And then going back to just the cultural point of this, in that if we were to celebrate, say, the International New Year, January 1st, that also falls on a Tuesday, would we then celebrate it on a Monday? So I just want to kind of drive that point home that it doesn't quite fit to celebrate the Lunar New Year the day before, or to celebrate any holiday the day before. If we're going to give it to our students, then we should be teaching them the correct day, because what message does this send them if we're telling them, hey, we celebrate these correctly, but then we're not going to celebrate these correctly? Does that give certain holidays more importance than others? I guess you can make of that what you will, whether that's a rhetorical question or whether you want to give me an answer back, but that's something that I'm posing to the school board.
Okay,
Is
thank
that
you.
the-
Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Yes, Keith.
Keith Hahn, 81 Fairview Avenue. I just have to agree with them. If you're not going to celebrate the holiday on the actual holiday, that's kind of ridiculous. I don't know how you schedule that calendar. But that's not what I'm here to talk about, but I do agree with them. I just want to address the racial flyer that went out last year, during last year's election on the BOE Unity team. That it was a despicable flyer, and it attacked Jerry Shee and Falguni Patel, unfortunately. The council recently passed an ordinance where they're going to ask the Attorney General to bring charges and expose those responsible. I just want to run through a timeline and address some of the stuff that happened. On September 18th, the Board of Ed auditor and also the Edison Township auditor, Hodgelick and Morrison, gave $7,200 to a PAC known as People Energizing Government, or PEGPAC. PEGPAC is run by the Somerset County Democratic Chairwoman, Peg Schaefer, who's also a partner in a law firm, Shane Schaefer. PEGPAC actually lists the law firm's address on the ELEC report as 150 Morristown Road, Suite 105, Bernardsville, New Jersey. That's on the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission report. On October 29th, PEGPAC gave $2,800 to your election fund, the Board of Ed Unity team. The very next day, on October 30th, People for Progress, which is an anonymous PAC that nobody really knows who was operating it, and list only Andres Morales as the treasurer, with a P.O. box of 10153 in New Brunswick, New Jersey, wrote check 0991 to Skyway Strategies for $3,299. Skyway Strategies was the firm hired by Mayor Lanke to do all his campaign work, including print media. When you call Skyway Strategies' phone number, they answer the phone Jaffe Communications. Jaffe Communications has a $43,000 a year contract to do public relations work for Edison Township. On October 31st, PEGPAC took the same $7,200 they received from the board auditor, Hodgelick and Morrison, and they gave it to the anonymous group People for Progress. Andy Hodgelick is also, what's that, Jerry?
Just continue.
Okay.
We'll see where you try to go.
I'm just trying, what does it have to do with the Board of Education?
Oh, it all comes together at the end. You got to be patient with me.
Okay, you got 3 minutes and 24 seconds.
You just cut me off for 40
No,
seconds.
I paused.
All right. All right. Let me move along then. On November 1st, which is the day the racial flyer came out and made national news, it was on every news outlet, People for Progress wrote 2 checks. Check number 0994 for $7,500 to A to Z Signs, which is located in Raritan Center and owned and operated by the IBA president, Darren Amin. They also, on that same day, November 1st, the day the flyer came out, they wrote check number 0995 for $875 to a company out of Knoxville, Tennessee, PNGNY out of Knoxville, Tennessee. The very next day, on November 2nd, the BOE Unity Team Fund made a debit purchase to that same company out of Knoxville, Tennessee, PNGY, for $675 for printing. That same day, on November 2nd, the BOE Unity Team wrote a check number 126 for $3,669 to A to Z Signs in Raritan Center, that's owned and operated by the IBA president, Darren Amin. The BOE Unity Team also listed an outstanding balance of $7,000 on November 2nd to A to Z Signs. On December 11th, the BOE Unity Team wrote check number 128 for $2,500 to a well-renowned law firm, Genovet and Burns. Now, I don't know why, if you didn't do anything wrong, you wouldn't just talk to the police and you'd go out and hire a law firm, but we'll get to that at the end. On April 12th, PegPack, which is that firm run by Peg Schaefer, up in Somerset County, wrote check number 104 to A to Z Signs for $1,150 and listed outstanding obligations to A to Z Signs for $5,850. 6 days later, on April 18th, PegPack's law firm, Shane Schaefer, was appointed as the library board attorneys. Now, I know, Jerry, you're a committee man as well as Falgooni's a committee woman.
I am not a committee man.
You're not a committee man? Did you resign recently?
I was never a committee man.
Oh, you ran for committee man. All right, and Falgooni is a committee woman. So that contract was given to Shane Schaefer, the attorney for the library board. I also have a couple flyers here that I just want to show. That one was printed for the BOE Unity team, and it lists U.S. postage paid by New Brunswick, New Jersey, permit number 1. This other one here is People for Progress, U.S. postage paid, New Brunswick, New Jersey, permit number 1. Now you can see that they both have the same pictures of me and Jeff Bowden here. They have the same newspaper articles. I'll share them with anybody. Anybody that looks at them is going to say they were probably made and designed and printed by the same person. This is just some of the facts together. And the questions I have for you, Jerry, is I would just like to know why you have refused to cooperate or talk to law enforcement since this investigation started. Who is PNGNY from Knoxville, Tennessee, and how did you come to use their services? And who is responsible for People for Progress? Because with all this information, it sure looks like it was the BOE Unity team. Now, if you don't want to answer them questions, I would gladly ask Mr. DiStefano, Ms. Maroney, or Ms. Patel if they would like to answer them questions.
The question I'm going to answer is, the matter is under investigation, and I have full faith in our law enforcement office to get into the bottom of it.
Well, I've been to 2 council meetings, Jerry, to ask the council. I invited you to come. I asked you to come. We haven't seen you. You've been silent, and you've been absent on this issue. So, more than happy to have you come with us to the next council meeting and ask for a status update.
I'll give you my answer. I have full faith in our law enforcement officers.
Well, I've been a cop for 24 years, so I have a little bit better idea what's going on than you do.
It's an ongoing investigation, and that's pretty much it.
All right. Mr. DiStefano, would you like to answer any of them questions?
Yeah. I'm not sure who those names are that were on our documents, our treasury documents for the Unity team, so I wasn't sure, where that money was going or where it was coming from. But I do have information that I have physical evidence of someone who is directly affiliated or could be directly affiliated with the People for Progress that I would be glad to share with you.
Okay. Would you like to share it with the group now, or would you like to talk? Well,
yeah,
we can meet at Wegmans after the meeting.
Yeah, I don't think it's appropriate for me to say the name.
All right.
Here, but I would I've offered this information to the Attorney General's office, and they have not been interested in it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Before we have any further
Wait,
response,
I
just want to clarify one thing. We had a member of the public speak earlier. I believe Frank spoke, and you said you were recommending, but you really were campaigning. And I just want to clarify that there is no campaigning allowed on any school property. What you're bringing up is a prior issue that has something to do with the board. I just want to clarify that you can't go into any advocacy or recommending of any candidate.
I'm not endorsing, supporting,
I just wanted to
recommending,
clarify that issue to make sure
like
the board members knew in their responses. This is about an old issue from last year.
Correct.
That you guys are speaking about that has to do with the board that's different than that. I just wanted to clarify before further comments were made.
Well, I think it is relevant in the sense that
I didn't say you couldn't say. I just wanted to clarify one point. Sorry.
This is all news to me. I mean, the truth is that I would ask Mr. Shi, how much money do we have? Where's the money coming from? And who is doing these flyers? And that was it. I never got any answers. Mr. Sheen never told me anything about anything was going on. So it's disturbing in that the Unity team is, being questioned. I had nothing to do with any flyers. I never knew about them. And I have been personally questioned and attacked about them. I didn't know a thing about any of them. I was kept completely in the dark about any flyers or the money.
So, Mr. DeStefano, you have somebody that you believe is involved or information that you'd like to provide?
Yes.
Ms. Maroney doesn't know anything. Ms. Patel, I don't know if you'd like to comment. And I believe you had nothing to do with this, so this is in no way directed towards you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but I really do hope that I have cooperated with anyone who has asked me any questions related to this issue. But I really just hope that they find the person who did it. I don't know what me being a committee woman has anything to do with anything. There's plenty of other committee people in this town. I'm not sure what their involvement in anything would be, so I'm not sure what your point was on that.
Well, you have the township auditor, Andy Hodgelick and Morrison, the township auditor, who's also the Board of Ed auditor. So obviously there's some connection bringing that money back to Edison.
Well, I wouldn't even know about that, but I have no further comment to make beyond that.
The only other thing, Jerry, I'd like to know is how come you've refused to talk to police? You said you have all the confidence in law enforcement to investigate this, but you've refused to talk to them up until this point. That's not having great confidence in law enforcement, and that's not helping anybody get to the bottom of this.
We have ongoing litigation against the team. So the advice from the attorney is to
Three-quarters of your team had no problem talking right now, Jerry.
That's my decision, and that's the
Three-quarters of your team had no problem
Keith, I really
talking.
don't care what you say. That's the answer.
You don't care what a lot of people say when they come up here, Jerry.
And
I
we
get
have
that.
an ongoing litigation.
I get that.
We have an ongoing litigation against the Unity team, and that's what the advice we were given by the.
Now, who's
the
paying
attorney.
for that attorney? Is it the BOE Unity team, or is it the actual Board of Ed that's paying for the attorney? Can you disclose that?
So
It's a legitimate question. Who's paying for the attorney?
it's a legit question. Your 6 minutes elapsed. Now you're into another 6 minutes.
Is
So
anybody waiting? Okay.
There are other people waiting, and Mr. Shi has answered your question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That's why
Don't badger my board.
Anthony Diamond, 15 Rodak. Mr. Shi, let me make a suggestion for you, because these new allegations or new information that's come forth to speed up the process of the Attorney General. The recommendation I make is that you recuse yourself of all voting matters going forward for the time being. I believe that you should step down as president. I believe the vice president should be acting president. And the way that's going to play a two-part role, what it's going to do, number one, is this. Let the Attorney General not tell us that there's an ongoing investigation or not an ongoing, or if there's suspects or not. But what it will do is let them clear you of any wrongdoing or any knowledge of what happened last year, for the integrity of this upcoming election and all future elections, for all future candidates. That's what this is about. It's not about you or anybody else. It's about the people, whoever wants to run in the future, to know that they're going to have a fair shot at this. Show leadership, step down, recuse yourself of anything that involves your vote or any voting, period, until the Attorney General clears you of any wrongdoing or any knowledge of. That is my recommendation. That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you for your recommendation. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Amy Donner. I live at 124 Highland Avenue. I just have one comment regarding enrollment, and it's something I've been thinking about for a while. I was wondering if the board would consider working with the township on doing a census and really getting to the basics of where people are living and the zoning in our town. And just, I guess I'd like to see more hand in hand between the board and the town. And that's really, all. I looked online, and From what I can see, the last census was 2010. So I would like to see if maybe the town would be willing to work with us again and having more updated numbers to see where exactly everyone is living, and if multiple families are in fact living in a house or extended families, just to get to the basics.
Yeah, we actually, that's the zone, the code with the township that they have to enforce. Our school district unfortunately cannot enforce any of those. And we have been having discussions with the township liaison committee. Those are things that are the topics that we discussed, families living, in the same address and so on. But it's a township thing that they have to move forward with it. And I know Woodbridge has been doing that. So we'll continue to look into it.
Okay, and one last thing, I did, to piggyback on the air conditioning issue, my husband teaches at Edison High School, and he came home every day feeling like he was breathing through a straw at the end of the day. And it was very upsetting to me, as well as my children who attend Edison High School and Thomas Jefferson. And we've been, my daughter's playing on the freshman volleyball team, so we have been visiting other schools. And South River, air conditioning, North Brunswick, air conditioning. And you go there, and it's just such a feeling of relief to be in those buildings. And you see the kids, and they're refreshed, they're so refreshed being in those buildings with the air compared to how they were playing at Edison High School, and they were drained with red faces. And it's just, I don't understand, and, I've heard other people say it too, and I just want to reiterate that if there's anything we can do, I would really appreciate it. And I understand there are a ton of things on the table, but I think it is important for the health and safety of our students and for the staff as well, just because of the overcrowding. It's like the perfect storm. So if we could address it sooner than later, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and we try to address it as an overall plan. And as you have been in the district for a long time, and
Yes.
this has been neglected for so many years, and so we'll try to make some waves on it. And as you just heard, we're trying to the first step is putting some air conditioning in the auditoriums in the area that we have bigger population. We'll continue to look into address the others.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just,
Yes.
one question, or not one question, just one comment, but we're doing a study now, basically to determine how many students we're gonna have next year, the following year. And the company that we hired is supposed to work with the town to try and get an idea as to where they feel their development's going, where it's been going for the last 10 years, only so that we can actually make a plan, not that we come up with a plan, we present it to the public, we build a school, and then we're overcrowded because that just took 4 years to get there.
Right. I think, I've lived here 42 years, my entire life, and my mom's still here, my brother's here. It's just, we're dedicated to this town, and I would just like to see things done and, more of a partnership between the town and the board. So if the board could do that in any way, I think it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Yes, Mrs. Conley.
Elizabeth Conway, 20 Netherwood Circle. I just have a couple of comments on what's taken place. Number one, with the electricity, I remember years ago a parent at Menlo Park School offered to put ACs into the school, and it was turned down because the school's not capable, the electricity was not capable. So before even putting AC in, you'd have to put in electricity. When I taught at Menlo, there was a plug in the front and a plug in the back, and then that was it. So addressing the AC, you'd have to address the electricity problem first. So that was my first thing. Piggybacking what Shivy had to say regarding the portal, I remember those olden days on both sides of the fence, being a parent filling out all those forms and being a teacher collecting all those forms. and if at all possible, having parents filling out all the forms at an earlier time would really take away from the overabundance of people at the same time going on, because you know where your child is going to be, and you're going to be in that school, so that's something you might want to address to alleviate that portal problem. The next thing I'd like to talk about, Mr. Brescher, if I could, from the history of Edison Township, there is a group called the Edison Township Parent-Teacher Advisory Council. It is still officially a committee, and it was very vital to this township when we needed to pass a budget, because the superintendents felt it was a great avenue to reach out to all the PTAs, PTOs, and PTSOs. But when it became that we did not have to pass a budget, the PTAs, PTOs, PTSOs did not become as important to the district. And it was a real disadvantage to those groups because they were not able to network as well as they could. It completely broke apart, and I'm actually the chairperson of one of the subcommittees, and I have to make sure at all times that the ETPTAC never officially fold, or my scholarship committee would lose quite a bit of money that would go to an Edison and J.P. Stevens student. So I'm asking the two people that will be in charge of our schools this year to maybe think about getting that committee back, and it would be another great way of networking and finding out what's going on in the community and what's finding out with one another. So that's my request. Thank you. And my last thing is, this is not something that's going away, these flyers. I find it very upsetting, and we seem to be making the front page of newspapers. It's going on the computer and all the different associations that are writing it up, and I just feel that it's a blemish to our district. And as I'm listening to Mr. Hahn speak, if 3 or 4 of you have already come forward, I thank you. And Mr. Shi, I would think you've got nothing to hide. Come forward and get it over with, and then maybe we can find out who's really doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say something on the parent portal, so because parents had to agree on so many forms before children could actually see their schedules, children were literally standing on parents' heads, and the portal was so slow that parents were quickly clicking on agree, 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 without really reading anything, so that they could just get into the and see the schedule. And it's important, equally important for parents to read all those forms, because some of the information has changed, and nobody really goes back and reads those forms again. So it would be really good once again to say that, you know, the access to forms should be opened much earlier, because one key change this year was the change in the sick leave policy, and I'm sure many parents did not read it, and we kind of made it easier, especially for high school kids for whom it's the hardest to take time off when they're sick. That three individual days when they are sick, they could actually get the day off just on the parent's note. They don't really have to go to the doctor and get the note, because earlier, if they were sick, if they had a headache or even a stomach ache, which didn't involve really going to the doctor, but they still needed to stay home, they still had to go to the doctor and get that note, because otherwise that leave would not be excused. But now it's not like that. 3 separate instances, they could actually, you know, just get parents' notes. So it's important to read all those forms, like go back into your parent portal, read those forms, because some information has changed. Thank you.
Yes.
just to get back to who's paying for the attorney for the BOE Unity team? Is that the campaign account or the Board of Ed?
Board of Ed doesn't pay. You said in your statement.
No, I said you gave a $2,500 retainer. That's nothing about who's paying.
That's what it is for.
Who's paying? Is
That's
it
what
the
it's
Board of Ed, or is it the campaign expense? Who's paying to fight this lawsuit you're talking about? Is that coming out of the taxpayers' money? Or is that
Absolutely not, Mr. Hahn, it's not. You just said it. That was a retainer to retain the lawyer to defend a lawsuit that's going on for the Unity team. And you saw the, you even quoting the check number. Okay, that's what it is.
Okay.
It's not.
So there's been no expenditure from the Board of Ed to cover the attorney for you or a lawsuit or nothing?
Absolutely not. This is
Okay.
a campaign issue. It's not a Board Ed issue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other public comments? See none. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Mr. Brescher, second. Okay, Mr. Patel, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.